the Amber Alert Podcast.
Welcome, Amber Alert Podcast, episode 43. I am your host, Amber Starkey, and it is a great day to be alive. As usual, as I keep saying, because it's true, and things just keep getting better. I know not everyone would agree with that, because according to a lot of people, things are getting worse, but I think they're getting better, and it's super exciting, so it's a wonderful time to be alive. So on the agenda for today, which of course put in the description, should be live on Rumble and YouTube, of course, until YouTube just kicks me off for no apparent reason. You know, they are giving me reasons, but they're stupid reasons. So, you know, it's whatever. YouTube can, yeah. Anyway, so we're going to talk about, there are not a ton of like super important things going on in the news. But we'll go through what is I deemed at least most interesting. Of course, that's a matter of opinion, but there's nothing like huge. So I will get into, from a historical standpoint, some discoveries that have been made, not necessarily recently, but it's interesting how they don't make the mainstream news. So even if they were discovered, say 10 years ago, people today still don't know about them because it's like no one wanted to talk about it. And you got to wonder why. I know why, because it's not a narrative that, you know, the powers that be would like to be, you know, known. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I want to get into the topic of Atlantis, which, you know, most people would probably say that was like a made up fiction place that I know they've made cartoons about it, which I personally liked those cartoons a lot. But we will talk about the possibility of that having actually been real. So I'm not here to encourage you to think one thing over another, simply to entertain the possibility of it and why. So we're going to listen to Tim Alberino, and then I want to get into the Bible about God's unchanging nature. All right. So, man, I was not prepared. I don't have like anything up and running just yet. So bear with me. I got to get to my folders. As I've done this podcast, I have gotten better about organization, which organization really is like my thing. But I just, you know, I was new to it, which I still would consider myself new to it. And I'm trying to do all these things by myself. So I'm sure there's a more efficient way. If I figure it out, it'll be more smooth and that'll be great. Okay, first things first. From the man DJT himself. He said, I am proud to announce that after much consideration and negotiation, U.S. Steel will remain in America and keep its headquarters in the great city of Pittsburgh. That is debatable. I live close to Pittsburgh. I don't know that I would call it a great city. I will say this, the traffic there is like a million times worse than Columbus, Ohio, and Pittsburgh is a smaller city. But I think the problem is that, well, you have bridges everywhere. But I think there are just way too many people in a city that's not big enough to hold them. And so the traffic is an absolute nightmare. I used to work. I had a job, thankfully I worked from home more often than I went in. But sometimes when I had to go into the main office, which was like Pittsburgh, it was a nightmare traffic. Because of course I was traveling during rush hour and it was the worst. So I don't miss that. Okay. So for many years, the name United States Steel was synonymous with greatness, and now it will be again. This will be a planned partnership between United States Steel and Nippon Steel, interesting name, which will create at least 70,000 jobs and add $14 billion to the U.S. economy. The bulk of that investment will occur in the next 14 months. This is the largest investment in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My tariff policies will ensure that steel will once again be forever made in America. From Pennsylvania to Arkansas and from Minnesota to Indiana, American made is back. I will see you all at U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh on Friday, May 30th for a big rally. Congratulations to all. Man, that is literally in 3 days. Given that, excuse me, given that I'm so close, I actually almost want to go for no reason other than to just bask and the fact that America is back, and it's awesome. I don't know. We'll see. See if my husband could swing it. Next. This young man led 895 of his high school classmates to Christ in California this past year. Okay, a kid in high school doing more than a lot of people who've been Christians for 40 years. Impressive. God bless you, sir. How awesome. Oh my goodness. So he obviously goes to a big school, because if you have 895 classmates, just the ones that said yes, I'm sure there were plenty of people he talked to who were like, I don't want anything to do with that. He must go to a big school, but God bless him. I'll say this about California. My church started a church there, and my pastor was saying how, California gets because conservatives, hate California, and everyone's like, how could anyone live there? Everyone there is so liberal, which a lot of people are. But if you're a Christian in California, you're like a real one, because you have to, there's nothing to gain from being a Christian. In fact, you have everything to lose. It's not like it is in the Bible Belt, where it's kind of like everybody like assumes everybody else is. And so it's like considered a good thing to be a Christian. In California, it's like not something that you would want to announce publicly. And yet, so people that are there who are Christians are like legitimate, bold ones that'll take an absolute beating for it, and it's worth it. So I do respect the ones that are there. Next. Let's go. Let's go. People have been saying this for years. Please do this. Okay. So new Olympic style games allow for athletes to use as many steroids and performance enhancing supplements as they want. Let's go. Let's see what peak human performance is with all of the PEDs and everything, debut, whatever. Let's see. So next May, Las Vegas will host the first ever enhanced games, a sporting event where athletes are not only allowed, but encouraged to use performance enhancing drugs. Yep, for reals. The idea is to ditch the stigma and see just how far the human body can go when science is fully unleashed. Athletes will compete in events like sprinting, swimming, and weightlifting, all while using doctor-prescribed substances that are legal in the U.S., like testosterone and whatever. Unfortunately, this might kill some people, because you see it in the fitness community. Rich Piana is an example. These guys, Ronnie Coleman is still alive, but look how messed up he is now. So and I know what it's like, because you get body dysmorphia. You do, and you look at yourself and you could be, which I'm not in perfect shape, but some people are. They're in perfect shape, couldn't pinch an inch of fat on them. They're strong, they're toned, they're well muscled, they look phenomenal, and yet they look at themselves and they don't see it. It's not enough. They're like, I either have too much fat, but usually more often than not, especially with guys, is my muscles aren't big enough. I don't have enough. I have to keep pushing. And then you get that in your head, it messes you up. And then people don't know when to stop. And then they get into with the insulin and everything else. And then you end up like, Rich Piana, and you just kill yourself prematurely, or you're severely messed up like Ronnie Coleman. And there's a price to pay for not, you can't, that's the thing about fitness. It should be about your health and longevity, right? The reason you move your body and you build muscle should be to help yourself out, to age well, to keep your independence longer. So as soon as you start to see, you got to notice this about yourself, as soon as it becomes less about your health and more about your looks, you've crossed a line where it's going to become a problem, and it's actually going to work against your health. So you have to keep that perspective. But that's the problem, when a lot of people are like, I just want to look good. And so, which, if that's your motivation to start, I get it. I think most people probably start there, but it should cross over at some point where you're like, I'm doing this for my health. I'm doing this because I want to age well. I don't want my body, it will atrophy if you don't use it or lose it. You know what I mean? So as long as you continue to use it, it's going to help you when you're older and things like that. So that's what it should be about. But these guys, I've seen them. If you go to the Arnold in Columbus, I hate to say it, but it is full of the most narcissistic and self-obsessed people I've ever seen in one place at one time. Men and women both, completely full of themselves. And I was just like, man, like I actually don't like working out anymore. I still do it, but I've always kind of liked the fitness community, a lot of really cool people in it, but like It's like, man, you've gotten to the point where it's no longer a good thing. It's become a very big problem for you, and you'll have problems down the road if you don't get it under control and make it about your health. You know what I'm saying? And then looking better is just the icing on top. Yes, you will look better the more muscular you are and the more in shape you are. So it's a perk, but again, it really should be for your health. But anyway, I am excited about that. Like, yeah, it may cause some problems, but it's going to be interesting to watch. Enter at your own risk. Okay, next. Oh, this idiot. Well, you can just tell she's dumb. Look at the green hair in her profile picture, like black lipstick. So this is in her bio. Of course, she's got a little pride flag, feminist, alt. I don't know if that means like ulterior lifestyle, some kind of gay. BLM. I don't know what KAM. I know ACAB means all cops are bad. And then look, free Palpatine. What a dummy. And there's Palpatine. I thought that was funny. That's not news. It's just another dumb leftist. Next. Chimney Rock, North Carolina, officials have confirmed that a mind-blowing 2,000 members of the Pennsylvania Amish community have been quietly rebuilding the town's homes, businesses, and bridges for 6 months straight. God bless the Amish. You know what? God bless the Amish. Look, when FEMA wouldn't do what FEMA was supposed to do, look who stepped in. And those Amish people can build, they're probably putting up houses overnight. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll put up barns in a day. Those people know how to work. So way to go, Amish people. Next. God bless them. Christianity was invented to control people. Then why do many of the most controlling governments outlaw Christianity? What a good question. It is not about controlling people. In fact, Christianity is what frees you. Jesus said, I came to set the captives free. It has nothing to do with control, and it has everything to do with you choosing. I don't want to live a slave to sin, because when you are a slave to sin, that's when you can't control yourself. You can't help but do the things. You just keep doing it over and over again. When you receive Christ, you finally have mastery over that. You have dominion over sin. And now you can choose and say, no, I don't want to do those things anymore, and I'm going to stop. So it's actually the opposite of control. Next. Imagine being upset about a plan to remove toxins from our food that many other countries have already banned simply because you don't like the guy banning them. Make it make sense. Yeah, I'm telling you, Trump could say no one should drink kerosene, and then lefties would be like, well, if Trump said not to, then I will, and they would just drink kerosene. Next. Emmanuel Macron's wife should be in like italics, slapped him in the face and then refused to hold his arm. I have the video for this. I think it's a little rich to call it a slap. But it definitely is like a little, it looks like angry. It looks like I want you away from me. I think this is it. I do think he's married to a dude who was 40 years old and he was 15 when they met. So it's like Brigitte, I believe, is a dude. I really am convinced of that. And so not only is he trans, but not only is he gay, but he's a gay pedophile, because Emmanuel was like 15 and then Brigitte was 40. So there's a big problem there already. And then look, getting a little feisty, not getting boom in your face. Get away from me. So I wouldn't call that a slap. You know what I mean? That's just like pushing his face away. And here he comes in a nice red jacket. Upset about something. Gross, very gross. I don't want to know about their relationship, but yeah, I wouldn't call that a slap. I would just say that that's clearly some kind of frustration, but I just, Anyway, next. The COVID injections are lethal injections from Alex Jones. This is Nuremberg trial stuff. Oncologist Dr. Agnes Dalgleish. These were not vaccines. These were horrible gene therapies that could actually integrate into your genome. Oh my goodness. And this is one of the reasons we're seeing this horrendous rise in turbo cancers. I am terrified about what they've done to our children. They were never, ever effective, and they never, ever were safe. The CDC, I believe, just finally took down their recommendation for children and then anyone who's pregnant to get the jab, and they're saying we don't recommend it because enough stuff has come out where it has caused adverse effects and has been linked to many deaths of young healthy people, and there's no other explanation. What's interesting though is it says these could actually integrate into your genome. What do we talk about here all the time that has everything to do with the human genome? Tampering with it, altering it. Do you know what I'm saying? Going back to, again, the devil has no new tricks. You have to understand, and I'll get to this eventually later on in a little bit after like news. You got to understand Genesis 3:15. You got to understand Genesis 6. And then that explains not only what happened in the past, I believe it also explains exactly what's going on today. The devil has never stopped attempting to pervert and contaminate the human genome. He had his reasons then, he has his reasons now. And we're seeing the same thing. Of course, we have a different vocabulary now. Now we also have different technology. We have different inventions. We have different medicine. So now you might see him doing what he's doing through the use of vaccines, and all kinds of things. So I'll get into that in a little bit. I don't really want to get ahead of myself, but it's just interesting because it's amazing how it keeps popping up, and it's always coming from evil people. Nobody with good intentions is ever wrapped up in messing with DNA, human genome. It's always someone evil with a satanic agenda. Next. Texas House has passed a bill mandating that the 10 Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. Way to go, Texas. I'll be honest, I could not name the 10 Commandments. I could get a few of them. I couldn't name all 10, and I say that to my shame. Next. Major companies in meaningful numbers are retreating from LGBTQ plus pride events amid President Trump's DEI crackdown. Good, because I'm sick of seeing all these companies who have nothing to do with gay anything. Every June 1st, oh, look at our little, our company logo that's now rainbow colors. Okay, stop pandering to people that have nothing to do with you. So thank God. This June better look different. Okay, we've got a few days left before June kicks off. God willing, this month is not smeared with gay pride. Next. Leftist media to tone down anti-Trump rhetoric per The Independent. I'll believe it when I see it, but also their ratings are absolutely tanking. So maybe they are trying a different approach. But, I don't really think there's a market for middle ground. People either want to hear right-wing affirming news or left-wing affirming news. Most people don't want the middle. So CNN started to kind of drift that way, and then now they barely exist. So we'll see. Next. President Trump's approval rating is rising among Democrats per Newsweek. Yeah, because you'd have to be a huge retard to not like everything that's going on in the country right now. You'd have to just be an outright liar who can't get over your hatred for one person. So a lot of them apparently have woken up. Next. Joseph Neumayer, a dual U.S. German citizen arrested earlier today at JFK Airport for plotting to bomb the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv and threatening to assassinate President Trump, made 118 donations to Act Blue per FEC records. So Act Blue, I believe, they're the ones, there were a bunch of donations that people said, I never made that donation, but it came out of their account. And then their name is there in Act Blue's records, and Act Blue's refusing to play ball and show their records and whatnot. But also, let's see. So he's a German U.S. German citizen, and you tried to blow up the U.S. embassy in Tel Aviv and assassinate President Trump. Where are you really coming from? Do you hate America and Trump? Do you hate Israel? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that guy's. It obviously hates Trump, but I don't know what he's trying to do. Clearly, it didn't work. Next. Phil Schneider, 1992. We have to listen to the video to see what this is about. We will listen to it. Let me find it. Here we are, Mr. Phil Schneider.
Agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6.
Hold on a second. I'm going to start it back over because you can't miss the first couple words.
And tell you what the alien agenda is. The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7 eighths of the world's population by the year 2029. The U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one. As far as I know, I'm the only person standing before a crowd talking about the alien agenda, secretively. The New World Order, the alien agenda is one and the same. It's world takeover and the decimation of the population of this planet. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. And tell you what the alien agenda
right.
is.
You mentioned adrenochrome, which that's not a conspiracy theory. That's real. That's what elites use. Gosh, I hate to tell you where it comes from if you at this point don't know. So it's but essentially you have to torture someone and then so their adrenaline is at peak, and then you draw blood with their adrenaline spiked, and then you use the blood. You like inject it in yourself or whatever, however they do it. And it supposedly keeps you from aging, which I've seen plenty of pictures of celebrities where, wow, you know how many of them look so impossibly young, right? And then all of a sudden, if they've not had access to it for a period of time, they look, wow, their age finally caught up with them, that type of thing. So adrenochrome's real. It's very heinous how they, what it is and how they use it. But anyway, he said the alien agenda is to destroy how much of the earth by 2029?
Agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7 eighths of the world's population by the year 2029. The U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one. As far as I know, I'm the only person standing before a crowd talking about the alien agenda, secretively. The New World Order, the alien agenda is one and the same. It's world takeover.
New World Order and alien agenda is one and the same. And I do believe that's true because I think, so hear me out. If things go down the way that I think they will, the church is raptured, which means caught up in the air, we disappear, right? Like, I hate to use this as an example, but if you've seen the Marvel movies about, I think it's maybe an Endgame, when Thanos finally gets the 6 Infinity Stones, he snaps his fingers and like a third of the population just disappears. Almost like that, except it's not just going to be a random third of the population. It's going to be the church. So we all leave, which I think the church is the restrainer that the Bible talks about. So then when the restrainer is pulled away, then the Antichrist can rise to power. But think about it. What is the aftermath going to look like on this earth? I'm going to move this and then I'll go back to it in a minute. What's the aftermath going to look like on this earth if all of a sudden a large number of people just disappear off the face of the earth? Won't that create a massive climate of fear and confusion? So people will be looking for some kind of stability. They'll be looking for some kind of answer, which there will be people who know what happened, people that grew up in church, people that knew someone who was a Christian who talked about the rapture, people who've read the Bible but just aren't born again. They'll know. There will be people who know, but people will be looking for something reassuring, right? So that is the perfect prime opportunity for a massive deception to come in. And like we've talked about, the lady who was Barbara Marciniak, the one channeling whatever spirits she's channeling, talks about there's the potential for a large percentage of the population to disappear in a single day. And if these people are taken from the earth, it means they're no longer fit to be here. They're not, they wouldn't be compliant with this new coming alien, blending with humanity or whatever, is what, something to that extent is what she's saying. So what I think will happen, the church gets raptured. People are freaking out. They're looking for answers. Of course, the Antichrist rises to power, but I also think you're going to have aliens show up, and they will work with, of course, in agreement with the Antichrist, and this will usher in the eventually the mark of the beast, where, hey, and this is all, I don't believe aliens are real. Let me just be clear about that. I believe a demonic farce. I believe they are fallen angels or demonic entities which are masquerading as some form of alien, some kind of extraterrestrial, because people will accept that notion has been seeded in people's minds via television, video games. So, you know what I mean? Entertainment has shown us enough. Oh, aliens, X, Y, and Z, ET, and they're not always portrayed as evil. So that is, what are you going to do? If you're the devil, are you going to manifest yourself as the devil and then expect people to want to have anything to do with you? No, he's not that dumb. So instead, you manifest yourself as something people will buy, and then they'll buy the delusion that you're sending, which is actually, we are intelligent beings. We're from wherever, Pleiades, whatever it will be. And we actually are responsible for humanity. We are you essentially, but we've ascended to a higher consciousness. We have superior bodies and genetics now. So in fact, if you want to be like us, to have what we have, to know what we have, to live like we live, just take this mark. Just take this chip or whatever it is. Yes, it's going to alter your DNA, but it's because your DNA is in fact holding you back. Your DNA is keeping you in a box, and you need to be able to transcend, essentially, to get to the next level. Humanity is at the end of their genetic rope. Disease is on the rise. Infertility, birth rates are down and all this stuff. So, you need our help. Transhumanism is the next step for the human race, or it'll be the end. And we will help usher you into that. So that way you can leave God out of the whole thing. There's no need for Jesus to be reconciled to God, because if you can live forever, especially disease-free, by just taking this mark that these beings say will make you like them, then you don't need God. You can basically get your eternal life without him. Literally, I'll get to it because I'm going to read a little bit of an excerpt of a book I've been reading, a quote that a guy said. So I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but it's interesting that, he's talking about an alien invasion or whatever. And he said it has everything to do with the New World Order. It's one and the same. I believe that that's correct. And the UFOs, the sightings, and I think the crashes, at least some of them, are intentional to as a point of contact with humanity. I think some of the sightings are probably intentional, because you have to seed enough so that you got to, it's like how Hollywood desensitizes you to certain things. If you've ever slowed down a cartoon or whatever, they put little sexual images in them to desensitize kids. I've already been exposed to this, so then it becomes normal to me. I'm not shocked by violence or whatever. I watch it daily, that type of thing. So if you see, UFOs are this burgeoning phenomena, they're all over the place. Aliens are in all kinds of movies and games. TV shows, why would it then be hard for you to accept, oh, there might be some reality to this? So they've been, you know, it's predictive programming to soften people to accept it when full disclosure comes, which I believe will be when the church is out of the way and Satan has full reign for massive deception, because that's what he does. So let me put this back up because I wanted to see what else he said. Which, I mean, I listened, but like there was a little more. Hold on. No, that's not what am I doing? Where'd it go? Here. Okay.
And the decimation of the population of this planet. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome.
Okay. So I could see that being a thing because adrenochrome is already a thing that humans are messing with. So why not, you know, why not something demonic be using it as well? So interesting. That's from 92, 33 years ago. I wonder if that guy's still alive. Next. All right. New World Order, UN Agenda 2030. I can't wait for the UN to not exist anymore. Mission goals: one world government, end of nations, one world army, one world police force, end of family unit, one world central bank, one world cashless currency, end of all private property, world depopulation, and fertility control. Do you see how just with those first things, that's the Democrats in a nutshell? They want bigger government. They want destroy the family unit. Okay. Private property. No, let the government own everything. Depopulation, fertility control. Okay. Bill Gates. End of home and car ownership. Yes. Move everything to EV. That way they can, you know, and get all these new cars that can be controlled essentially by a software program so they could terminate it at any point they want. Now your car won't even start, which is why I keep your gas car at all costs. Mandatory multiple vaccines yearly. No thanks. Universal austerity income, social media, digital ID, microchipped for health, shopping, and travel. Microchips, interesting. Implementation of Chinese social credit system, government raised children. That's already been ongoing. All businesses run by the state. Yeah. How many small businesses died from COVID and haven't been back since then? So what are we talking about? This stuff is, again, this is their agenda for 2030. And a number of these things already happened, or that, you know, I think 2020 COVID was their attempt to do all of this. And yet it didn't work because enough people resisted and they said, no, we're not going to allow the government to overstep. You know what I'm saying? Which they've been overstepping, but it was like a leap that they were trying. So I think that in their mind was going to be the end, but it didn't work. So here they go again for 2030. End of non-essential air travel. This is why everyone who needs to travel for whatever good thing they do should have a private jet, your own pilots, and enough money to fuel your own jet. Humans concentrated into 15-minute zones, end of private farms and vegetable gardens. Yeah, God forbid people grow their own food so they're not eating poison, huh? End of animal ownership. I dare somebody to try to come take my dogs. You will get shot in the doorway. Ban on all natural medicine. Oh, of course. Why? Because big pharma, you know, if you follow the money, you know why it's a thing. They're not trying to cure people. They want to create customers because it makes money. And also, as long as you're not really healthy, as long as you're sick and dependent on your drugs, you're under someone else's control. So God forbid people are healthy and don't need big pharma. AI courts and end of individual rights. That's, you know, I use AI all the time and I like AI, but of course with any new technology, it can be either used for good or evil, and it will be used for both. Limited access to wild spaces, end to fossil fuels and modern conveniences. Yeah. So does any of that sound like something you would like? All of that sounds like something I don't want, which is why I will never vote for anybody who's in bed with the globalists, because that's what they want. And like it or not, that's what the Democrats are doing. So that tells you everything I need to know about the way I vote. Next. Massachusetts officially moves to ban cars and implement 15-minute cities. The very same restrictions are now being put in place in the UK and Western Europe. First, they track and restrict your mileage, and then they ban your car altogether. This is high-tech neo-feudalism. Again, this is why don't go get an electric car that's all nice and fancy and can be shut off remotely, and you can't start it and drive. Senator Cynthia Cream says EVs aren't enough. Massachusetts must limit how far you can drive to. Her bill creates a panel to track your mileage and fine you if you go too far. She says just walk or bike. She's just a puppet. This all comes from the World Economic Forum, UN death goal. I think I have the video for this. Where is it? Man, not that. Give me a second. Yeah, here it is. So she's a terrible person. This lady from Massachusetts. Are we surprised? What did it get deleted? Why is it not coming up? All right, maybe that post got deleted, so we can't watch the video. But I watched the video, and it's true. She's trying to do that. So if you needed a reason to not live in Massachusetts anymore, there you go. Next. This is the size of the Kill the Boer rallies in South Africa. The race Marxists are holding. CNN tells us it's nuanced. So kill the Boer means kill the white farmers. So again, the media ran with that story. This is not true. They're making it up. It's not made up, and there's a huge crowd. Next. Is there a cure for Trump arrangement? He means derangement syndrome. I remember seeing this skit. I think it was before the election. But it's funny, so I want to watch it again.
How has the election made you feel on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being Nazi? My name is Dr. Nick Peterson, and I specialize in those suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Hello, I'm Dr. Peterson. How are you? Well, Donald Trump is a felon. Nope. I asked how you were doing. The majority of Americans can mentally handle election results on both sides of the aisle. However, there's this small, albeit growing, group of, I don't want to say Americans, but people that are just disconnected from reality. Fascist. And honestly, it makes diagnosing these people a whole lot easier. I just check their social media. Gone are the days when you just search your symptoms on WebMD at home by yourself. Now they record their symptoms and post them for the world to see. The haircut is also a dead giveaway.
Oh, yeah.
So, what brings you in today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the orange democracy-destroying, Putin-loving dictator. All right, so mental illness. They are completely blind to the fact that their absurd actions and ideologies were a big factor in their party's loss. Let me ask you this. Do you even know what a democracy is? Follow-up question. Do you know how Kamala Harris became the nominee? I know you're a deplorable Nazi fascist bigot. Okay, neat. Turns out that calling half the country Nazis for 4 years was not a winning strategy. And yet somehow, not even Cardi B could save him. Do you realize what I'm going through? Yep, delusions. I am losing my right to vote. What? Where are you getting your information? Whoopi Goldberg? Well, what's the remedy? You might be wondering. Well, if you ask me, it's a history lesson in Jesus, but the pharmacy doesn't offer those. I prescribe them a brain, and I send them to tryabrain.com for more information.
See, this is the problem with your hardcore leftists, is that there is not logic involved in anything. It's just emotion. That's why you can't reason with them. And honestly, I don't think anyone can get to the point these people are at that are so devoid of any kind of rationale. It takes a spirit. It really does. It's like it's a spirit, because it's not normal, and it's not, and it's fine for people to have a difference of opinion. But But when there's absolutely zero rationale and you refuse to look at facts, I mean, that's not a normal human. You know what I'm saying? That's like it's like something's been taken from you to allow you to be able. It's like you're missing the side of your brain that processes logic, and you're just firing, with the side that where your emotion comes from. So this is why I see people arguing in comments, and I'm like, you're wasting your time. That's why I never will. Never. I honestly, if anything I say like leads to a bunch of replies of someone trying to start an argument, I just delete the comment, because I'm like, I'm not wasting my time with a person who refuses to have a shred of common sense. If you think I'm going to take time out of my day, especially when it's a stranger, but it could even be someone I know. If you think I'm going to waste my time with a person who I know can't see, you're out of your mind. I will not waste my time. And I'll also, you don't need to like be able to try to force me into a conversation with you. So I'll block you. I don't care. You are clearly not a person who's open to any shred of truth. So I'm not the person for you. So it should make no difference whether or not I block you, which I will do with a smile on my face and not think twice, which is one thing I love about the internet. Someone's annoying, they go away in a second. It's great.
Well, I'll show you. I'm moving to Canada.
That'd be great.
And I'll be shaving my head.
Oh, that's no.
And one last thing, I'm going on a sex strike. Your loss. Oh, no.
Yep. See how ridiculous that is? And yet that's like exactly how people have been acting since the election. So, next. The cost of a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline has dropped more than $1 on average nationwide since President Trump took office 125 days ago. That's real progress that you will not see reported by the globalist-controlled corporate press. Yeah, of course they're not going to report it, which is why, you would think any person that's putting gas in their car would notice that the prices have come down, and yet they somehow haven't, unless the TV told them the gas prices have changed, then nothing Trump has done has brought down gas prices. It's like, okay, you could actually just open your eyes and read the sign, but you won't. So. Next. All right. Alex Soros is reportedly planning to marry Huma Abedin on Donald Trump's birthday. Oh, I'm sure Trump will be so hurt. I'm sure it's just going to ruin his birthday. I'm sure he'll never get over it. He might just kill himself because it'll be so hurtful. You're really going to show him. So if you don't know who Huma Abedin is, she was Hillary Clinton's like aide for a long time. Maybe she still is. I don't know what she's doing now. She was married to Anthony Weiner, who was the guy who actually went to prison for like sexting with underage individuals. I think he's out now. And then, of course, that's Alex Soros, the little underling of George Soros. I wonder who his mom is. Who in the world, whatever. So this is essentially what you're looking at is a match made in hell. That chick right there really knows how to pick them. She goes from a pedophile to someone arguably worse, who I'm sure is also a pedophile. So tells you the kind of person she is. Next. The body of Epstein victim, Virginia Giuffre, has been cremated. I would like to know if her family requested that or if they just did it. Next. Meanwhile, in Florida, Checkers employee accused of murdering customer over mayo packet dispute. Okay. So, as a person who in my younger years did for a period of time work in the restaurant industry, I will say this. I'm not saying it's okay to murder someone. I'm simply saying I understand. Because that job, that type of job, whether it's food service, whether it's retail, or just working with the public directly, where you encounter all kinds of Karens. I'm telling you, nothing will make you want to kill people more than that kind of job. So if this guy finally lost it over someone, who knows what the situation was with this mayo packet. This is conjecture on my part, but I'm simply saying if someone was being a Karen and giving him a hard time over some mayo and he was like, you know what, I've actually just had it and decided to kill that person. Again, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm simply saying I understand. I really do. So we don't know what the context is there. It's sad someone died. If they were acting some type of way, may it be a lesson to everybody. Don't, you know, you don't need to treat people a certain way. If they're providing a service, just be polite, say thank you. Don't be a Karen. That is a good way to get your food spit in. It's a good way to, you know, especially if it's someone who's taking your card, your payment details. It wouldn't be that hard for them to copy the card number and then run up a bunch of charges and create a huge mess for you. Sometimes people have access to your address, phone number, things like that. Don't mess with those people, because if you really tick them off enough and they are a little bit psycho and they want to mess with your life, they could. So just be kind. It's not that hard to treat people like humans. Next. Jordan Peterson refuses to say if he's a Christian during a Jubilee debate with 20 atheists. The atheist, this is Christian versus atheist. Peterson, I don't know. Atheist, you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it? Peterson, I could be either one of them, but I don't have to tell you. Atheist, I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Embarrassing. A lot of conservatives seem to really like Jordan Peterson. I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan. I'm really not. He says a bunch of things and doesn't really say anything. For one, he throws in a bunch of like words to like sound. And I'm not saying he's not intelligent, but he reminds me of if you ever had to write a paper on something and you didn't read the book, or it's like Billy Madison at the end of the movie when he was doing that, like that academic triathlon or whatever it was. And he had to talk about the Industrial Revolution and he clearly didn't know what it was. So he just made up something. That's kind of how Jordan Peterson sounds to me. And again, it's not that he isn't intelligent. It's just that the way he talks is like, you didn't say anything. And I'm actually more confused because you just didn't like plainly say something. He also, you know, being a Canadian, it's like he got considered a conservative just because he's less liberal than your average Canadian. But that doesn't make you a conservative. It just means you're like not as flaming liberal as Canadians are. So I'm not really a fan of him. I don't want to read his books. I don't really want to listen to him. I don't really consider him an ally. So no thanks. Next. Majority of Christians believe the United States is on the right track for the first time in Rasmussen reports polling history. Yes, because we finally are on the right track, thank God. And this is so much better than Trump's first term. Amazingly better. Next. New COVID-19 variant NB181 reportedly spreading in the U.S. per Forbes. Nobody cares. We're not doing this again. You can cook up as many variants as you would like in whatever kind of lab. No one's doing it. Good try. Next. Stargate activated. UAE unlocks free ChatGPT Plus for every resident. At a global first, the UAE is giving every resident free access to ChatGPT Plus as part of its Stargate UAE AI mega project with OpenAI. Behind it, Oracle, NVIDIA, G42 SoftBank, a 1 gigawatt supercomputing cluster is coming to Abu Dhabi, meant to power AI across half the planet, not just access, influence. The UAE is betting on AI to run schools, hospitals, transit, and maybe the future. And while other countries debate AI ethics in committee, the Emirates just deployed it at scale. Okay, I get people freak out. Oh no, AI is going to be the Antichrist. Okay. You know, people back in the day when airplanes were existed, you know, when they were invented, had a problem with airplanes. Okay. I don't want to use them because whatever, you know, are airplanes the devil? No. Do people use planes to go do evil things to other people? Yes, but people also use them to get the gospel around the world. So you have to take the good with the bad. Look at the internet, for example. How many people when the internet, the World Wide Web became a thing? Oh my goodness, it's going to be the end of the world. It's the Antichrist. Okay. Yeah, the internet gives life to pornography, dark webs where child molesters can link up. You know what I mean? Child porn, all that stuff the internet gives access to. But at the same time, you know what the internet does? Gets the gospel into parts of the world where the gospel is not allowed to be. It also helps you find criminals and bring them down. So you have to understand that whatever tool or new technology comes out, there's potential for it to either be used for good or used for evil, and it's always used for both. So you can't, it's like the good people are scared to use something. So then the evil people aren't. They're like, oh, it makes my evil doing easier, I'm going to use it. Whereas if people would take advantage when something new comes about, like my church, they're using AI to do translation so that they put the gospel into 4 different languages, and it's expensive, but it's very good translation. It keeps your tone, the way your voice sounds, inflection, all of that. Even background noise. So it sounds like literally the service was done in this particular language. So that's why it's expensive, but use AI to get the gospel out. I remember when I went on a mission trip, this was back in like 2014. They told us that the number one, this has been over 10 years, but the number one country using using YouTube, which of course they need the internet to access YouTube, was Saudi Arabia. So they said, pray that the internet stays open in Saudi Arabia because it's the only way those people can get the gospel. You can't have a Bible. You can get your head cut off if you're caught with that. So people were able to access the gospel in closed off countries because of the internet. AI can do the same thing. Get the gospel to someone in a language. They speak a language in a particular country where the gospel is not allowed. Boom. So use it for good. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not, I'm sure there are evil plans being cooked up with AI, but until the end, why don't we use it to our advantage and make some good come out of it? Which I'm building something right now, and I'm using AI to build it, and it's making my life a million times easier. So I'm thankful for it. Next. Leftist activist on TikTok calls to boycott the 4th of July. Democrats hate America. Yes, they do. Let's see what this idiot had to say. Please stop playing before I tell you to. I hate that about X.
We boycott all of their shows. We boycott the charade. We don't gather in parks to celebrate an illusion. We won't pretend that explosions overhead make us in.
What's the illusion? The Revolutionary War actually happened. Okay? We actually won. We actually got our independence from the British. So what's an illusion about the 4th of July?
Independent while our rights, our voices, and our futures are being sold off behind.
I want to know what rights you've lost.
Our backs. Instead, we reclaim the day with solidarity and silence.
Solidarity.
Gather with your friends. Gather with your families. Support your local independently owned businesses. Turn this day into a true declaration, not of fake independence, but of real, grounded community. While the fireworks go off, we will not be a part of the illusion. We will stand together in quiet strength, in unity, and in truth. Because
okay, you're gonna have like 4 people joining you. The rest of us normal people will be celebrating as we always do. Nothing is being canceled.
real power does not come from parades and explosions. It comes from people standing shoulder to shoulder, refusing to be distracted. This is not about left or right anymore.
The 4th of July happens every year. I don't think it's a distraction.
This is not about race or party. This is about all of us. This is about ending the performance and starting something real. My friends, you and I and everyone else, we are the resistance. We are.
You're actually not, okay? Leftists are not the resistance. Leftists are the ones who wants everybody to just comply, okay? If daddy government says to start eating crap, just start eating crap. Just, why can't you just comply? Why do you have to resist? Just wear your 3 masks. Just get the vaccine. Just stop going places, just buy an electric car, just do whatever the government says. You are not the resistance, okay? You are the opposite of the resistance. You are the ones, but you know what? They consider themselves being, resistant now because the government is now Trump. So now all of a sudden you want to resist. Why? Because Trump is resisting the globalist agenda. But that's what you want us all to comply with. And that's why COVID didn't work, because enough people said, no, I'm not complying with that. He's got it all twisted. And what's going on with his hair? Was that intentional? What happened?
Of the economy, and we will not celebrate a freedom that does not exist.
It does exist, and I'm going to celebrate it.
Hold the line, and please share this video everywhere. Thank you.
I'm sharing so I can make fun of you. Okay. Next. He's not the only one saying that, by the way. I saw another one. I couldn't play it because it was full of profanity. Next. Unless you are severely sick or disabled or temporarily out of work and aggressively looking for new employment, you simply should not be financially dependent on your wife. This should be just about the least controversial advice I could ever give a man. I agree with this. So, feminism has made people think that women can do whatever men can do. Oh, I make more money than the typical man. Look at me go, blah, blah, blah. But I think gender roles have existed forever because it is the best way. It fits. Everything fires on all cylinders when people do the roles that they're best at. And also, here's the thing. So this is what the government wanted. So they pushed this feminism. We got to empower women. Go get a job. Go do your thing. Don't. Part of it is to make divorce easier, because if women are making their own money, and I'm not against, I'll get to that. So anyway, if women are making their own money, and you are like slightly upset with your husband, it's much easier for you to walk out on your marriage when there's no financial dependence. Okay. So not only does the divorce rate go up, so there's the destruction of the nuclear family, which Satan likes and the globalists like. It's anti-biblical. Okay. Also, if mom goes to work, then where do the kids go? Well, they got to go to school all day. They got to go to, state run. We can indoctrinate your kids, turn them into gay communists while you're both at work. So then, whatever kind of influence you want poured into the kids, it happens because mom's at work instead of the kids being at home with mom. So there's that. And then there's also being able to tax two incomes. If we can just get women to think they should work and make them want to work, we can get double the tax from one family. So that, and here's the thing though, because that's been pushed for so many years now, and because of the rise of the cost of everything, most people can't afford to only have the man working. So it's not that everybody wants to work, it's that out of necessity, the wife is working as well. So that's why anyone who has the luxury of being able to be a stay-at-home mom, you're winning. That's like peak. That's what everybody should want. But society has convinced people it's empowering to go into the workforce. And who wants to be a stay-at-home mom, blah, blah, blah. Everybody should want to be, if you have kids. Raise your own kids, keep them out of the school system where they get indoctrinated, and keep your family together. You know what I'm saying? So it's a shame. Now, I get, people have to out of necessity. And I'm not, if you're not, it's one thing for you, if you're like a female and you're someone's wife and you're just staying home and not doing anything, I feel like you should do something. You know what I'm not saying men go to work and women just don't do anything. You should be doing something. But like, think about it. Back in the day, what were they doing before they were working? That household was run by the wife. kids, everything. She took care of the kids. She cooked, she cleaned, she kept the household running, kept things supplied. So she's doing something. And then now that things have changed, you can make money from home. You can, I don't know, do some kind of investing. You can start a little business or something. There are plenty of things you can do that you don't have to go into like the mainstream workforce. You know, it's normal. It's like there's this push. It's like anytime you want to not be part of the normal flow of the way things go, it's like someone rises up to like discourage you. Whether if you're a Christian, as long as you don't have too much fire and you don't start actually doing what the Bible tells us to do, it's like, you know, everything's fine. Just keep it status quo. Don't ruffle any feathers. Just be chill. We need you to stay at this level. And as soon as you decide, I caught the fire of God, I'm going to go out and do what Jesus said to do, all of a sudden, people that you wouldn't even expect it from, they'll be right there to discourage you, and they may not even know that they're doing it, but it'll happen. And it's the same thing with, I guarantee, you know, and I hate to use him as an example because I think he's probably a terrible person, but Jeff Bezos, you know, he started Amazon in a garage. I got to wonder how many people discourage him. You can't do that. You need to go get a regular job where you have security. You know exactly what's coming in. It's a sure thing. And then look how it blew up. Right. So it's like anytime you decide, no, I don't want to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. I don't want to just go with the flow, be the status quo, like everybody, like society says you have to do this. And you just have to accept that's the way it's going to be. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to start my own thing. And you would think people closest to you, people who care about you, your friends, whoever, would encourage you. But instead, there's always discouragement. Anytime you decide, I'd like to go higher than what's normal. I would like to do something that's not traditional because I think it's the right thing to do. You'll get met with all kinds of discouragement. Some of it will come from yourself. Satan will be in your ear. You can't do that. It's going to fail. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. There's that. There's people. It's all kinds of things. So anyway, back to that. You know, nothing wrong with you both earning money, but any dude is going to sit back and let his wife, you know, be the provider, that's actually not biblical. So I agree with you, Matt Walsh, even though I'm sure all the feminists were, you know, giving him a hard time. All right. So that's it for the news. Man, it took an hour again. Okay. So now I want to talk about Atlantis. So here's the thing. Atlantis, you know, was talked about by Plato, not Play-Doh like that you play with as a kid, like Plato, you know, the writer from however many years ago. So again, they've made cartoons about it. This is something we have been told was not real. This was like an allegory for something, or it was just like this made up literary, you know, fantasy, whatever. But here's the thing. And I had never, ever considered this until maybe it was last year. I was listening to someone, maybe it was Rick Renner, maybe it was L.A. Marzulli. I don't remember. One of them brought it up and they said, you know, I think Atlantis was probably real. And I thought, if one of them are saying that, because neither, especially, I mean, they're both very intelligent. They're well educated, so much more than me. They're well-respected researchers. And so I thought, for one of them to say it, I got to wonder, and I had never considered it because I just wrote it off as some kind of fictional, like it never existed. It was part of a story. But here's the thing. So we know, based off of all these megalithic sites around the world that clearly were constructed using technology that humanity did not have at the time of their construction, why would Atlantis be too far-fetched to believe? It was supposedly a city with high tech, right? With all kinds of technology that was way ahead of their time. Well, clearly we know there was a technology ahead of its time. Look at the pyramids, look at what they've been finding under them. Look at these Stonehenge, all these megalithic sites. And it's amazing how when you follow where they're lined up, it's like there was an actual global grid system between these megalithic sites. Is that coincidence? You'd have to be insane to think that's coincidence. That means somebody was able to map this out and create these in different destinations across the world to create some kind of global grid. So, could Atlantis have been real? Of course. And here's the thing. It supposedly sunk. It went underwater. Well, the entire globe was underwater at one point when the flood happened. So before I get to Atlantis, here's the thing. The flood, of course, the Bible tells us about the flood, but the flood was also written about by tons and tons of different ancient writers from different civilizations. Like it is like well documented that it actually happened. It's not like just the Bible talks about it, so I can take it or leave it because I don't know if the Bible's true. No, it was written about all kinds of different places by different people. And if that doesn't convince you, how do you explain fossilized fish and marine life on mountain peaks? All right. On Mount Everest, I'll just show you. Mount Everest has fossilized fish, marine life. Let me show you this one first. So you're telling me, so this clearly it was underwater at some point. All right. And I'm sure that they have some kind of evolution way of trying to explain it. But I'm telling you, you would have to go through a bunch of hoops, do a bunch of like gymnastics to try to get around the fact that you would just accept, no, there was a catastrophic event, a great deluge that covered the entire earth. And that would explain, if this was underwater, why you'd have marine fossils. So there's an example. I'll show you guys a couple more pictures. Here's just an example of what it looks like. Clearly those came out of seawater. Here's another one. So how in the world are there fossilized fish embedded in the rock at these super high altitudes? I'll show you one more, and then I'll show you an article actually before I show you that picture. No, I'll show it to you now. They even found, not on Mount Everest or in the Himalayas, but they found a 25-foot whale skeleton on a mountain in the United States. And this was like 10 years ago. I actually have the article, which I probably won't read the whole thing, but I just want to show it to you. And this, again, this kind of stuff doesn't make mainstream news. Why? Because it confirms the biblical account, and none of them want to do that because all the media is owned by like 6 companies who are all in bed with the globalists. So this doesn't make it into mainstream news, but they found this whale skeleton, nearly intact, well above sea level. So of course they're going to say, there's some kind of, so this is in Santa Cruz, California. Of course, they have their explanation that denies the biblical narrative essentially. But I believe this is just further evidence of the fact that the entire earth was underwater at one point. And it's because of the Great Flood. So going back to what I was talking about with Atlantis, there was this highly civilized, technologically advanced place that was washed away by water. Why would that be outside the realm of possibility when we have plenty? We know everything was underwater based on, and I love when they make scientific or archaeological discoveries in modernity that just further reinforce the Bible. Because it's like the longer time goes on, the more relevant the Bible becomes, because they keep finding more things that it's like, oh yeah, the Bible said that happened, and look, now we're finding evidence for it. But anyway, I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that Atlantis may have been real. The technology was clearly there by someone who had it, who was able to construct things that we, oftentimes can't even recreate today. So also, some of these ancient writers also wrote about, tons of them wrote about, and I'm telling you, a lot of this is coming out of this book right here by Rick Renner. I'm not quite done with it, but it's a super interesting book, and he's done the research and studied all of these ancient texts from different writers, different, centuries. And not only did so many of them write about the flood, almost all of them also wrote about the Genesis 6 account, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they had children by them, and the offspring of that was the giants. But here's the thing, is a lot of them also wrote about the giants having physical like deformities or abnormalities. So they weren't weak. Like if you have gigantism, like Robert Wadlow, who was 8'11", you're weak and you're not well, and he died at age 22. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about huge, I'm not going to call them people, huge entities, huge beings that were giants, but they weren't weak. They were physically strong, but they did have some genetic abnormalities. The Bible talks about an Egyptian who was a giant. He had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. So he had 24 in all. That's a genetic abnormality. So then when, these ancient texts talk about a cyclops, it was a giant, but it had one eye. Could that be one of the giants the Bible talks about, the Nephilim? And that was the abnormality, was the eye didn't, was like that? It could be. So I'm simply saying, and Rick Renner pointed out, he said a lot of the arts and sciences that we still use today came out of these ancient cultures who wrote about all these things. So why, I don't think that it's fair or accurate to dismiss everything that sounds like fantasy, but we'll accept the things that we know are relevant today. He said that's, you can't just write these people off as insane. I have a super hyperactive imagination and I just made up crazy stories about crazy creatures. Or was there actually something they saw that they wrote about? Because the Bible's full of crazy things that, unless someone wrote about it, we'd never believe it today. So I don't think that you can dismiss all of this. And again, this is coming from Rick Renner, who is a highly intellectual person. So he's not at all fantastical or anything like that. He's as intellectual as it gets. So anyway, he's not the one who's going to talk about Atlantis. It's actually Tim Alberino, and I'm not sure who it is that's interviewing him, but I want us to watch this video. He's going to talk about it just a little bit. He actually believes that it was real. So let's listen. Tim Alberino, like I've said before when I've used his stuff, this is him in the like green or tan. He's like Indiana Jones. He's been all over the place. He's a researcher. He's dug up things. I like him a lot. And he's from Ohio. Pour one out for my homies. I knew the first time I heard him talk, I was like, he sounds like me. Like I consider myself having no accent, and maybe not other people would agree, but like, I don't have a Southern accent. I don't have an East Coast accent, even a Midwest. It's just like no accent in my opinion. And he sounds like me, but I thought, that's interesting because I knew he lived in Montana, but he's from Brook Park, Cleveland. So that's my dude. Let's listen.
You brought up Atlantis, and that's something that I'd love to talk a little bit more about there. Going through your birthright lectures, and I know that you cover way more information inside your birthright book there. You were talking inside there about, and I am 100% with you, that these beings, they had to have had technology that would just fry our minds to even try and conceive what they had access to. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Atlantis, I know at least in my understanding, and I believe it's in your understanding as well, Atlantis would have been a antediluvian place.
Yeah, Atlantis was.
Hold on. I'm going to explain. Antediluvian, if you're not aware, means pre-flood, before the flood. So they throw that word around. If you don't know what that means, that's what they're talking about. So they're saying Atlantis would have been something that was there before the flood, which makes sense. Why would it be underwater?
Certainly a civilization that existed in the antediluvian world, according to Plato's account.
Okay, and I'd love to have you on again to talk more about your Birthright book specifically, and sort of the trek that we see the Watchers take in taking over what was rightly given to man. But you talked inside there about the Empire of the Gods, and then that very quickly segued into the Atlantis account, and you had these kings set up on the earth that were Nephilim kings. They were part human and they were part Watcher, or part. I know that you had a bit of explanation around the idea of fallen angel, and how you talked about angel, the definition actually being messenger, and so I like that you chose to use the term Watcher, and then sons of God more in the, I guess, specific as direct beings created by God. But you talked inside there about them being so not just technologically superior, but militaristically superior in terms of what they had at their disposal, that the only place that could withstand them was Athens. Could you go into a little bit about that?
Well, I believe that first of all, I believe that Atlantis was real. I happen to believe that.
So do I.
That Atlantis was a real civilization, kingdom. And most of what we know, in fact, nearly all of what we know about Atlantis comes to us from Plato in his Critias dialogue. And Plato's dialogue happens to be a allegory. It happens that it's also an allegory of the antediluvian world. Now, whether that is intentional or not by Plato, I don't know. But in the Critias, it's Solon of Athens, by the way, that is speaking with one of the priests of Sais in Egypt. And the Egyptian priests are the ones relating to him, to Solon, in the Critias dialogue, the legend of Atlantis. And they tell Solon that Atlantis, that in the beginning, when the gods were apportioning the earth amongst themselves, so just pause there and let's reference, by the way, the story of the Watchers is not told in the Bible. It's told in the book of Enoch.
Yep.
Let's pause real quick. And people, I don't trust the book of Enoch, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like I said, there were plenty of other ancient writers who wrote about the same thing you find in the book of Enoch. So now you're not just taking issue with one piece of historical literature, but you're going to have to take issue with all of them. I was just looking because I was talking about how so many ancient writers wrote about the flood, but also many of those same ones also wrote about the giants. Flavius Josephus, who was a highly respected Jewish historian, wrote about it. Tatian, whoever that is. Irenaeus, Athenagoras of Athens, Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, Commodian, Sulpicius Severus. I mean, we're talking tons of different people who were record keepers, who were historians, who wrote about the flood, who wrote about the giants, who wrote about what caused the creation of the giants, which is the Watchers coming down and breeding with human beings. So it isn't just a made-up story in one person's writings. It's documented in multiple places. And again, it's in the Bible, Genesis 6, not as much detail, but it is there. So that being said, even if you wanted to throw out the Bible, okay, now you have to deal with all these other ancient historians, and you gotta say they all made it up. Don't think so. You can't take, if you're going to take that position, then you can't take anything as fact that any of them wrote at any point. Then you just say, I don't believe any history written ever because I wasn't there. Okay, then you literally can't believe anything unless you see it for yourself, which makes you, you're going to end up in a padded room with your arms behind your back if that's the way you are.
It's referenced in the Bible, but the story is related in the book of Enoch. So you have this scene in Greek mythology of the gods apportioning the earth amongst themselves. Well, I believe that's precisely what the Watchers did. There were 200 Watchers that descended in the days of Jared in the antediluvian world. And in my book, I suggest that there were three things that the Watchers wanted, that this scheme of theirs, it was not impulsive. They had a plan, and they executed their plan. And the three things that they desired were they desired to marry the daughters of men. That's apparent. They desired to procreate their own offspring with their wives, with their human wives. That's also apparent. So the first two things are apparent in the text, in the Enochian tale. The third thing is inferred. And the third thing that I say that they wanted was dominion of the earth. Because by...
Hold on, let me pause. So that's exactly what the devil would do. So I'm not okay. So Genesis 3:15, which is the first prophetic word in the Bible. This is immediately after Adam and Eve sinned, which of course was Satan's doing. He tempted, which they made a choice, but he brought the temptation. So they sinned by eating the fruit. And then God comes on the scene and he curses the serpent and he says, I will put enmity between your seed and the seed of the woman. You will strike his heel and he will crush your head. So you have the seed of the woman, which is humanity, right? What is the seed of the serpent? Well, then we read a little bit further. You have these fallen angels. And what do? What do they do just a few chapters later in Genesis? They mingle with the seed of the woman and they have offspring, right? So that right there is Satan's attempt to corrupt or pollute the human genome. Why? To keep the prophetic word from Genesis 3:15 from happening. God said the seed of the woman is going to crush the head of my seed. So I'm going to corrupt the seed of the woman so that whoever that is that's going to crush my head can't be born. I'm going to corrupt. I'm going to make, you know what I'm saying? And it's like that seed war started. It kicked it off and it's never stopped. And yes, Jesus came. Well, after this, then when God saw what the Watchers did and these hybrids that were on the earth, the Nephilim, God sent the flood. It says Noah was pure. I take that as his blood was pure, uncontaminated by the Watchers, the hybrids, right? So he preserves a remnant, 8 people. They get off the ark, and then they're given the same command, which I'll get to in a little bit, about replenishing the earth. But it says the Nephilim were on the earth also after the flood. So that means another group of angels came down and did the same thing. Satan did not give up on his plan. And then you look at what's going on today with people being abducted, and these hybrids are walking around. People have encounters with them. That was not a human. It freaked me out. I don't know what it was. It has genetic, it may not be a giant, but it has genetic abnormalities. The eyes aren't right. It doesn't act right. It doesn't move right. It doesn't talk right. The vibes are off. It's not human. So you have the same thing today, and it is his goal, like he said, corrupt the human genome, but also he wants dominion over the earth. Why? Because God gave it to Adam, okay? And then Adam screwed it up, and legally Satan took what was intended for Adam. And then when Jesus came, who is the second from Adam, Jesus restored that dominion for us, and Satan has never, didn't just decide, forget it, I don't want it back. So there's a war that he makes on humanity for his evil purposes, which is kind of what he's getting at. But this is a tale as old as time. This has been going on from the very, very beginning.
Copulating with human women and procreating offspring, sons, who were hybrids, who were part Watcher and part human from their mothers. They would have created offspring who were human enough to inherit the birthright of Adam. I struggle trying to explain this because it's so technical. Which
is literally what you see today. If you encounter a hybrid, which God willing you never do, but I've listened to people's eyewitness accounts. They said, it can almost pass. It can almost pass for a human. You listen to Al Matthews and his encounter with one in Canada, and she, what gave it away, she acted like she looked like a very attractive, just female. And I think he was at her house. She had talked him into, she was like obsessed with trying to have sex with him, but he had a girlfriend, so he wasn't like doing it. But she ended up, a fly, he said, he's at her house, I think, a fly came buzzing, and she stuck out her tongue and ate the fly, and he was like, what, what is going on? And then she let out this evil, he said it was the most evil sounding cackle of a laugh I've ever heard. And then she takes her glasses off and her eyes blinked horizontally, like reptilian type thing. And he said, I ran scared out of the house. I was like, oh my goodness, this is not a human being. But they can almost pass, is what I'm saying. There's another guy, the Native American from Minnesota. When he walked into, I've talked about this, he walked into a Whole Foods, and he saw a lady there, attractive, beautiful tattoos of some leaves on her arm. And he went over to her and asked where to find this particular spice or something. And she didn't even look up. She was kind of rude and dismissive, but she said aisle, whatever. So he thought, maybe she's having a bad day. So he's walking toward that aisle, and all of a sudden he feels like eyes boring into the back of his neck. He's like, something's up behind me. And he's a believer. He turned around and she's staring at him. And I think he said her eyes were completely black, no white. And he says she's staring at him. And the next thing in his mind, he sees Minneapolis on fire. This was before the George Floyd things, mind you. So he took it as like a threat. So he looks back at her, and this is essentially like mind speak or telepathy. He didn't say it verbally, but he like said in his head, like, you don't want this, because he's a believer and he knows, I call on the name of Jesus, the name above every name. So whatever you are, whatever you're into, it bows at that name. So you do not want to try to go there with me. So, he said that in his mind, like, you don't want this. And then she looked away, and he's like, I don't know what she is, but she's not a person. So there you go. Looking human enough, like Tim Alberino just said.
And complex. I'm trying not to divert us into a conversation about dominion. So
For sure.
I'll say that again. So I believe that the third thing, and the most critical thing that the Watchers wanted, was dominion of the earth. And they could not obtain dominion of the earth themselves. And you'll understand this if you read the book Birthright. I'm not just inventing this on the go.
Yes.
The only way to obtain dominion of the earth was through the offspring of Adam, because dominion of the earth was bequeathed to Adam and his offspring for all time. That's in Genesis. So in order to have any authority on earth at all, first of all, you have to bargain with the vice regents, who are the offspring of Adam, both through the line of Seth and through the line of Cain. And then, if you're going to have direct control, then you need to exert what I call rule by proxy through your own offspring, who are human enough to execute, to appropriate that authority, the authority of Adam, the birthright. To inherit the birthright and appropriate that authority. So they would have had to create hybrid offspring in order to govern the earth from behind the thrones of their hybrid sons. Now, going back to the story of Atlantis. So we find the gods apportioning the earth among themselves, just like I think the Watchers did. And that means they're dividing it up. This is going to be my territory. This is going to be your.
Let me pause, because this is another thing that Rick Renner pointed out as he studied all of these ancient cultures. He said it's amazing how whether it's the Greeks, the Romans, Mesopotamians, Babylonians, Egyptians, they all have their own like kind of creation story, right? But he said it's amazing how all of them, the details are different, but there's this central theme that essentially the same thing happened in all of their stories, where there were gods who had relations with humans, and then the offspring of that was a demigod. And it is exactly what happened in the Watchers account, the Genesis 6 account. God, except they weren't gods, they were fallen angels. But if you don't have the vocabulary, that's one way to describe it. So you had gods who came down, had relations with human beings, and then gave birth to demigods, or more accurately, I would say hybrids. But it's a godless, evil entity because what they're missing from their creation stories is God Almighty, the actual creator. And what they're not understanding are these gods are fallen angels who are evil, of the devil. But it's amazing how they all follow the same thing. They just have their own names for them and their own account, and they don't see that it's evil. It's like what they worship. So again, were these people just making up insane things, or were they actually making observations about things that actually happened, and they wrote them down, and then later we come along and we read them and say, wow, they had active imaginations? Or were these actual accounts, but in their own vocabulary and in the time that they lived, this is their way of describing what they saw and what they knew to be true because of what lived on the earth with them and what went on in their lifetimes. So that's what he's saying is in that account from Plato or whatever, that they were, they apportioned, the gods apportioned territories to themselves, which he said, I believe that's what the Watchers did. There were 200 of them from the book of Enoch. So that's what he's getting at. He's drawing a parallel between what actually happened and what the Plato's account says happened.
Territory, that's going to be your territory, and they're going to create their own kingdoms within their allotted realms. And so what do? Well, we know what they did because Plato tells us what Poseidon did. The god Poseidon, I'm sure this was, and I know that this was indeed replicated by the other gods. Poseidon, he gets the portion as his portion, Atlantis, the area of Atlantis. And what does he do? He goes and he marries a human woman, a daughter of a human being, of a man. He takes her, weds her, copulates with her, and she gives birth to 5 sets of twin sons, the chief of these being Atlas. And these sons, who other sources describe as giants, the giant sons, and indeed Atlas is described as a giant within the Greek mythos.
Do you see what I'm saying? When you actually start to study this stuff, you see it can be traced back to real events that the Bible records. So it's like they had the story, but the details are off, and they also do not see it as evil. They've left out God, and they've taken as gods exactly what the devil wants you to take as gods. He's the one who, in the Bible, who said, I will ascend and become like the Most High God. He wanted to be worshipped in God's place. He wanted to ascend. That's why he got kicked out of heaven like a loser. And that's what he wants is for himself, for his demonic legion to take the place of God and be worshipped in his stead. And so there is a deception that takes place. If you don't see it that way in your religion, then you would worship what appears to be, I know this isn't human. This is higher than us. They have technology and knowledge we don't have. So clearly this is a god because it's not a person. And there you go. Then ensues the worship of that being.
These giant sons become the kings, the rulers of Poseidon's kingdom, Atlantis. So it's not Poseidon who's ruling over Atlantis. Rather, he's ruling by proxy through the hybrid sons. So this is the modus operandi of the Watchers. This is precisely what they do. And so you have these 10 twin sons of Poseidon who are ruling over Atlantis. And Atlantis wasn't just a city. It held sway over, according to Manly P. Hall, the celebrated Masonic scholar. Atlantis held sway over 7 islands and 3 continents. And returning to Plato's account in the Critias, the Atlanteans became haughty and they became hostile to their neighbors. And they went on a warpath. And they were easily subduing everyone they encountered until they encountered the Atlanteans, whose patron deity was Athena. And the Atlanteans were the only kingdom, according to Plato, who were able, according more specifically to the priests of Sais, who were able to withstand.
I'm going to keep this running and be right back. Sorry.
And the Atlanteans, and they were.
Oh, you mean the Athenians?
What did I just say?
You said Atlanteans. I think you mean the Athenians.
Rather, were the only ones who could withstand, who could buttress the conquest of the Atlantean Empire, the advance of the Atlantean Empire. And they were locked in this war when a great cataclysm ensued. A cataclysm, by the way, that not only destroyed the kingdom, the empire of Atlantis, destroyed their capital city on the island of Atlantis, but also the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a detail that I think a lot of people miss. It wasn't just Atlantis that was destroyed. Everything was destroyed. The Egyptians make this clear in the story, in the account, in Plato's account, as they are relating this to Solon. They say that the world has succumbed to many cataclysms, right? You Greeks only record one, and so the world has been destroyed by many cataclysms. So this cataclysm, the cataclysm of Atlantis, which was primarily apparently an aqueous cataclysm, destroyed the Atlantean Empire and destroyed the Athenians as well. The other and all
He's talking about the flood. It literally destroyed everything.
All other, one would assume, civilizations that existed in the world at the time. Well, of course, that syncs perfectly with the Enochian tale, the story of the Watchers, because what happens after the Watchers apportion the earth, and which is inferred, I'm inferring that that's what they did. It's not directly in the text. It's there indirectly, and they begin to execute proximal authority through their sons. They rule the world. They rule their kingdoms from behind the thrones of their hybrid sons, who are human enough to inherit the birthright of Adam and execute his authority on earth as kings. And what happens next in the story, in the Enochian tale? The giants who are ruling over kingdoms go to war with one another, just like in the story of Atlantis. Mm-hmm. They go to war with one another. And what happens either during or in the aftermath, I think it was probably during this conflict, this global world. I'm trying to think of it because wouldn't be the first World War. It would be World War Zero, really. Mm-hmm. A cataclysm ensues, and the empire of the gods is what I call this scenario, is utterly destroyed in an aqueous cataclysm, in the cataclysm of the Noahic flood. So you have a mirror. You have a at the very least, I say, if Atlantis was not a literal kingdom, a literal civilization, then it is at the very least an allegory of the antediluvian world.
Yes. So that's the thing. So you can either believe, okay, maybe this was real. Maybe it wasn't. I'm open to either one. The thing is, I've already had my mind blown, with plenty of the discoveries they've made of these ancient sites that just defy, what we've believed as fact, right? What we've been taught. There, anything that can be traced back to the Bible is left out of history books. It's left out of academia. It's not reported on. So it's like, then you start to uncover some of this stuff. And the thing is, I think that you should look at it with a, through an academic mindset. Don't look at it as I'm looking for something supernatural to be the case. Look at it from a scientific, mindset, right? And like that, what I say, if you encounter something that you think is like supernatural, exhaust every natural explanation first before you then decide, okay, this must be supernatural. But I'm also not going to say that just because I grew up being told this was not real doesn't mean I'll continue to accept that if I find out about something that seems to refute that, or in this case, I wouldn't say it refutes that, but it does open the door to the possibility of it having been a real place. So if you study those ancient texts and compare the various authors who wrote, many about the same event, did they all know about something that in modernity has been dismissed as just some work of fiction? Possibly. Real quick, I'll have us watch 2 other videos, because what kind of led me to want to talk about Atlantis today was I found out about something called the Bimini Road, and I didn't know what it was. And I'm not saying, I'm sure as far as science goes, this is dismissed as naturally occurring, although no one can say so with 100% certainty. So you have people on both sides of the aisle. You have people who say, no, this is definitely naturally occurring. We can tell you why. Other people look at it, they're like, come on, it's a stretch. You have to make an attempt to try to say that's naturally occurring. So you have people on both sides of the aisle. I don't know. I'm somewhere in the middle. I could go one way or the other. If there's concrete evidence that it's naturally occurring, fine. If there's concrete evidence that it certainly is man-made, fine. I'll go either way, depending on what the evidence shows. But the Bimini Road, I'll show you this first clip. It's pretty short. This guy was on Joe Rogan, one of my favorite places to pull information from, because he always has interesting people on who know things that no one wants you to talk about.
Mysteries I look into. On an ancient map, the famous Reese map drawn by a Turkish admiral in 1513, that Grand Bahama Banks as an above water island is shown. And what do you see running down it? An image of the Bimini Road. Bimini today is a tiny island, but during the Ice Age was part of an enormous island. The whole Grand Bahama Bank was above water. The Bimini Road is only about 20 feet deep. It was one of the last things to be covered by Ice Age sea level rise. And it's made of extremely regular megalithic blocks on a very large scale, more than 1,000 feet in length. When you dive on it, it's impossible to believe that it's entirely a work of nature. When you get underneath those rocks, you see that they're propped up, they're leveled out with rocks underneath them, that the whole thing is being very carefully structured by human beings. We know that it's been underwater for about 6,000 or 7,000 years, but the question is, how long before that was it made? How long did it stand there above water at a very prominent point on this ancient island that we now call the Grand Bahama Bank? And one of the mysteries I look into.
That's in the Bahamas, and it's real. Like if you were to go there, it's not that far on, beneath the water, so you can, like he showed the people scuba diving or whatever, you can go see it. 20 feet, he said. I have this is a little bit better. So basically, science says that's something called beach rock, I think it is, which they say that something like that can form when like sediment and shells and things kind of cement together, and it will kind of level out and create something that looks like a road. Which if that's all a work of nature, that's an awfully perfect looking road. Do you know what I'm saying? Like for rocks that are that geometric to have been fitted by nature pretty perfectly next to each other in the shape of a road that goes on for more than 1,000 feet, might be closer to 1,500. That is a pretty impressive coincidence. Now, I'm not a geologist, and I'm certainly not a scientist of any kind. I'm simply saying, looking at that is a pretty impressive, naturally occurring phenomenon. Now, you could say the same about Sage Wall, which is, I think, in Montana. A lot of people have looked at Sage Wall and they thought that it was created by humans because of the square rocks. But Tim Alberino and L.A. Marzulli both went to it, and they said within 5 minutes they debunked it, and they were like, no, this is 100% naturally occurring. You can see the fission, and that tells you that there were glaciers that moved this, and that's why it is the way it is. So I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm simply saying it's a very majestic and impressive work of nature if it literally created something that appears to be an underwater road. So let's watch this last one. It's very short, and you guys can make up your own minds.
Supporters point to Plato's mention in 360 BC, describing a powerful city sinking around 9600 BC. Skeptics argue no evidence exists, but is that entirely true? On September 2, 1968, divers found the Bimini Road near Bimini Island in the Bahamas. It resembles ancient stone roads, with massive stones perfectly interlocked, forming a neat road. Two other structures, the Bimini Walls, were also discovered. Still in 1968, pilots photographed underwater buildings, aligning with a 1939 prophecy by Edgar Cayce about underwater city emerging near Bimini. The Bimini Road sparked excitement, debated as natural or engineered. Believers in Plato's Atlantis clash with skeptics, while Bimini natives see the road as sacred, its true value still unknown. The debate continues between mystical and scientific explanations.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to say one way or another. Yes, I believe Atlantis was real. The flood wiped it out. Everything's this is the remnants of it. This Bimini Road in the Bahamas. First of all, even if Atlantis was real, at some point ended up underwater, as everything was at one point. Doesn't mean that location in the Bahamas is even where it would be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. I guess there's conjecture based off of Plato's account, what he said, I forget what the word was, but it was beyond a certain point. And so that they said, based on what he wrote, it could be in the Bahamas, but he certainly didn't write anything that would cross that off the list as a potential location. So I don't know. Again, that road is very, very impressive if it's just an act of nature. But also if there are other things if you're seeing that, okay, and then you're seeing some other things underwater in the same area that look like walls or man-made structures, I think that demands some further explanation. I don't expect you to try to drain the ocean, you know what I mean? But I feel like, we have plenty of technology now that someone should be able to get down there and do some further research to be able to tell. For example, are there like right angles? If you're seeing right angles, those aren't naturally occurring. So that tells you somebody made this, right? So I feel like for us to really make a decision one way or another, there needs to be some further evidence. And even if the Bimini Road and whatever else is down there, they find out, yes, this was man-made, that doesn't mean it was Atlantis. It could just be, this island, people were living here, something happened, it's now underwater, but somebody lived here at some point. So I think it's very interesting, but I didn't know that you could draw parallels between what Plato wrote about and what we find in the book of Enoch and in the Bible. I never knew that. I had always dismissed everything as just a work of fiction. But maybe he did write about some things that actually happened that can be verified by other ancient texts. So then it kind of gives some credibility to it as this deserves some further investigation. So again, I'm not taking a position, real or not, I don't know. I am open to either one being the case. But since we talked a little bit about the flood, I want to go into that a little more, because from the Bible, wanted to talk about God's unchanging nature, and it has a lot to do with the flood, and I'll tell you why. So before I get to that account, let me read a couple things the Word of God says concerning Himself. Okay, for I, the Lord, do not change, from Malachi 3:6. So there He says it explicitly. So this is why I have a hard time with people that believe the Bible. Yes, I believe all that happened, praise God. But then they would never believe any of what God did then He would do today. For example, like healing. Oh, he healed people in the Bible, but we can't really have that today. Well, He doesn't change. So if He had compassion to heal the sick, and He promised healing in the old covenant, and now we have a better covenant established on better promises, Hebrews 8 tells us, then where did His compassion go if He's unchanged? So this is why the more you read the Bible and you learn about the nature of God, it should increase your faith to understand there are certain things you can believe for today because He is still the same. He has remained unchanged, and He will forever be unchanged. Here's another example. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. This is the verse I've talked about. Mahesh Chavda, tremendous evangelist. When his mom, he came from a Hindu background, you know, when his mom, so he had moved to the US, he's living, I think, in Texas at the time, and his family had moved to London. So he gets a call from his brother that his mom was sick with stage 4 cancer and she's on her way out. So Mahesh, he was in college. He had no money to get a plane ticket to fly to Europe, and he was crying. And he also, since his mom was a devout Hindu, they had parted company, not on the best terms, because she, coming from a devout Hindu family, was incredibly hurt when he abandoned that to become a Christian. So he wanted to see her, you know, that it hurt that she would maybe die and he couldn't talk to her or see her again. So he's crying, and the Lord spoke this verse to him: I'm the same yesterday and today and forever. And he thought, okay, like yeah, I've read that. What are you talking about? I'm the same yesterday and today and forever. And he said, pray for your mother. So Mahesh is like, okay. So he prayed for her healing. He gets a call from his brother. He said, mom's better. And then she went on and lived her cancer was gone. She went on and lived another 20 years, and he was able to, you know, see her and stuff. So that, you know, when you read that, when Jesus walked around laying his hands on sick people in biblical times, understand that Jesus is alive. He is seated at the right hand of the Father, but he is alive, and he is exactly the same as he was. He has all power. He has the name above every name. He still desires to heal the sick. But the difference is he's seated at the right hand of the Father. But you know what he did when he sent the Holy Spirit? He said, my helper will come. He will lead you and to do all these things. And then you see when Paul wrote his epistles, he talked about it in multiple different ones, how Jesus Christ is the head and we are the body. So the Holy Spirit was sent to empower and equip the body of Christ to go do the things that he wanted done. So understand, if the head gives the command, but the body doesn't do what it's supposed to do, nothing gets done, because the head can't just move independent of the body. If I remove my head from my body right now, nothing's getting done. So understand. And also too, when people are angry with God about certain things, you know, well, if God's real, why didn't he heal my mom? Okay. Well, God gave it's actually the church's fault. If you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at the church for not being obedient to carry out the command that Jesus said, lay your hands on the sick and they'll recover. It's the church's fault. So if the church is doing what the church is commanded to do, and they are in fact operating as the body of Christ, then these things are getting done. So it's not God's fault. He literally did everything he needs to do. He gave us full authority and power through the Holy Spirit to do all of the things that he wants done, to undo the works of the devil, to expand the kingdom, to bring more people in so less people are in hell. He gave us everything. If we're not doing it, it's not getting done, but it's our responsibility. So if you have questions, well, if Jesus healed people then, would he heal people now? Yes. In the name of Jesus, people still get healed today, and it's the most wonderful thing ever. Next. Every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. So that's just another example. God is good. Perfect gifts come from him, and he never changes, never vary. So again, if you're praying for something and you don't see it happen, don't get mad at God, because God's not the variable. You are. You have a problem. You're doing something wrong. Do not blame him, because he's perfect and he's faithful. If he said he'll do it, he will. If something's not working, you have to figure out what you're doing wrong. Next. God is not a man that he should lie, or a son of man that he should change his mind. Has he said, and will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? So here's the thing. If God's word says one thing, you can bet, you can take it to the bank, you can depend on it. And I'm not even really meaning to get into his reliability, his faithfulness, but it's kind of hard to talk about how he doesn't change without talking about this. So and here's the thing too, is God is bound by his word. That people say God can do anything. Yes, if you're talking about speaking into existence things that don't exist, yes. Creating the whole world by the words, yes. Healing, incurable diseases, raising the dead. Oh, yes, all of that. Agreed. However, you know what he can't do? He can't lie, and he can't not be faithful to his word. He is bound by his word. If he said he'll do something, he will. So, but you have to have faith in that. And as soon as you develop that faith by hearing the word, God's like, yes, finally, somebody who is taking me at my word. I am happy to do it. So you're not a bother. There's a verse, I think it's in James, it says, he won't upbraid you, or he won't rebuke you for asking for things. He is, if you're through Christ, you've become a son or daughter, you're in the family. It's his good pleasure to do things for you. He wants to bless you. You're not a bother to ask for things. He won't rebuke you for it, but everything gets activated by faith. And when you believe what he says concerning himself and hold him to it, that's why if you're believing for something, find verses in the Bible that will support whatever it is you're believing for. If it's healing, find all the places in the Bible that you're promised healing, and then make your case to God using his word, because he will honor it every time. Lord, I'm praying for, the work of my hands to be blessed. You said everything I put my hand to will prosper. You've given me power to create wealth. Whatever, find whatever verses are relevant to the thing that you're praying for, and he will honor his word every time. Next. So when God desired to show more convincingly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it with an oath, so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled for refuge might have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. So there's two things: unchangeable character. It's impossible for him to lie. For the sake of the faith of God's elect and their knowledge of the truth, which accords with godliness, in hope of eternal life, which God, who never lies, promised before the ages began. And you could keep reading if you wanted, but that was the main part I wanted you to see, is that God never lies. So that's a handful of verses for you to show you about his unchanging nature. And I actually have more at the end, but what I want to get into now is show you a couple actual examples of this that we see in the Bible. So here is what God said in the very beginning in the book of Genesis. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So this is God talking to Adam and Eve. This is him giving dominion of the earth to mankind. This was his plan. He made man in his image. His plan was for man to have dominion over the earth, to rule the earth, right? The heavens belong to God. The earth he's given to man. I think that's in one of the Psalms. So this is God's plan. When he made people have dominion over the earth. Okay. So then, this is just a description of where the Garden of Eden. So the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and there it divided and became 4 rivers. The name of the first is the Pishon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah, where there's gold. And the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and onyx stones are there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Cush. And the name of the third river is the Tigris, which flows east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates, which, like I said in the last episode, is drying up as we speak, just like it says in the book of Revelation, it will. So it's interesting. Rick Renner pointed out in this book I showed you that people, when we read the word garden, we tend to think of a small plot of land. But he said, according to this description and these 4 the rivers that are mentioned there, it was potentially 15. What did he say? I need to find it. Gosh, I'm going to be upset if I don't find it. It was potentially 1,500 square miles or something like that. So we're talking about an actual big, oh, hold on. I'm about to find it. An actual big area of land. And that should be, I actually lost my place, which is super frustrating because yeah, so 1,500 square miles, that's what I was looking for. So this was not a small little area of land. And it also, notice how everything they needed was supplied in the garden. They had food, they had resources. It was a rich and abundant land. And they also had dominion over everything. So again, God's original plan put mankind on the earth to have a relationship with me, and I'll bless them. I will provide everything that they need, and they will essentially rule the earth as I'm up here in heaven. So that's God's plan, right? So let's move forward. So we know what happened, what caused the flood, that the Nephilim had contaminated the earth. God sends the flood, wipes them all out, and yes, they reappear later, but notice that God saved Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. So you had 8 people on the earth, and then 2 of every kind of animal who were on the boat for, I think, over a year or something like that. So then eventually the waters start to recede. So when the flood happened, which you read in the Bible, is not only was there a torrential downpour from the windows of heaven, it just rained and rained and rained, but it said also the springs like gushed and burst open within the deep of the earth. So you had water coming out of the earth at the same time a torrential rainfall is happening. So that's what caused this great deluge, this great flood that covered the entire earth. And the thing is, it had to cover the entire earth. People have made the argument that it was a local flood. But at this point, Rick Renner did the research. There would have been probably millions of people already on the earth. They dispersed and everything. And they could have just gotten to high ground, right? But as we see, like, they found the fossilized fish and marine life at the peaks of the highest places on earth. Everything was underwater at one point, and everything had to be wiped out to cleanse the earth of the contamination from the Nephilim. So eventually the waters start to recede. That's when Noah opens the window and sends out a bird, and a couple times it came back with nothing. But then one time it came back with a freshly plucked olive leaf. So that means there's a tree that's now not underwater. So the water's coming down. And then it says the ark came to land in the mountains of Ararat, which I talked about this a long time ago, that they have found what I believe 100% is Noah's ark. It's in the mountains of Ararat, exactly where the Bible said it landed. It's on. So there are multiple peaks in the mountains of Ararat, and there's one in particular called Mount Judy. It's written Cudi, but it's pronounced Judy, and that's where this ship-shaped structure is. And over the course of the years, it slid down, I think 1,200 feet or so. But they've also, in the valley below where this massive ship is, they have found these massive drogue stones. And so drogue stones were essentially, you would put, for a ship that size, I think there were 12 on each side. They were held by ropes, and they went down into the water, and it was a means of the ship balancing itself as it rocked, which obviously a worldwide flood, that's a very unstable body. There's a lot of moving there. So ships in antiquity had these. So it would make sense for Noah to have put them on the side of the boat. And then as the water started to recede, they started to cut them loose. So you can find those stones in the valley below where the ship-shaped structure is. So why did I bring that up? I don't know. It's pretty cool. If you want to do a deep dive into it, again, this book goes into a lot of detail about Noah's Ark, what they found. It's in the, I don't know if I'm saying it right, Darupinar site, which is modern day Turkey. But it's kind of right on the border of Iran. And Rick Renner's been there multiple times on site. And that's the thing is too, they've done like ground penetrating radar scans on this structure, and they found it has 3 levels and it has right angles, which of course they don't occur in nature. So plus it's funny, one side of it, I think the sides kind of fell out, but it has this pointed end, just like ships did in antiquity, and 3 floors, and the dimensions of it are literally exactly what the Bible says the dimensions were that God commanded Noah to build. So like 515 feet long, like 50 feet high or something. And I forget what the width was supposed to be. So it matches to a T. And then what happened is over time, there's mudslide. There's like mud that has made it fall, but a big boulder fell into it at some point. And so it has held the structure there for a long time now. So anyway, so they eventually the ark lands in the mountains of Ararat, and then this is what God said to Noah. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." And then look. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." So notice, this is exactly word for word what he said to Adam and Eve. This is what God's original plan, okay? God's original plan with humanity: be fruitful and multiply, have dominion over the earth. And then everything got messed up when they sinned, and then the Nephilim were there contaminating everything. So God floods the earth and kills everything except for Noah and his family. And then what does he do? Did he say, you know what? I tried this once. I tried this with Adam and Eve. I gave humanity. I waited. If you look at the lifespans of how long these people lived, 900 years, you know what I mean? It was and Noah wasn't like Adam's son. There were generations between them. And so God was patient as humanity continued to get worse and sin more and get corrupted. God was patient. And here's the thing: at any point, if we were to look at this from the outside looking in, would say God would have been justified to be like, forget it. You know, I wanted humanity to inhabit the earth. I wanted a relationship with them. I wanted to bless them, but they've completely messed it up and I'm done. Like, look at what they're doing. It's awful. But he didn't do that. Instead, he wipes the slate clean and he goes exactly back to his original plan. Be fruitful and multiply. I tried this with Adam and Eve. It had to be reset, but I have not changed my ideal relationship with man. I've not changed my plan for humanity. I want to give you the earth to live, to multiply, have dominion, and fill it. I have not changed. So it's like, even though this awful thing happened in the Garden of Eden, God literally did not change. And then what's even more awesome, and this is something you don't know unless you do the research, which is another reason why this book has been so interesting to read, and this is not 100%, not 100% like verified as the actual truth, but there's a lot of reasons why this is very, very highly probable. So when the ark landed and Noah and his family got off, scholars and researchers have pretty much agreed that it was essentially just about the exact location where the Garden of Eden was. So not only did God give mankind the same, command to be fruitful, have dominion over the earth and all that, he actually took them back to the place where it all started. That's how unchanging his nature is. That's how serious he takes his plan. I'm not going to deviate. This is what I wanted. It was a good plan. I looked at everything I made and I said it was good. So I don't need to change my plan. And also my nature doesn't change it. So he brought them back to the point of origin. So this is just an excerpt from the book. It says, if the Garden of Eden was indeed located in this region, which would include the area where the ark came to land in the mountains of Ararat, it means God, the great master planner, who is given to dates, times, and places, caused the currents of the flood to carry the ark with Noah and his family to the same general area where he had placed Adam and Eve at the time of creation. If that's true, it means that when Noah and his family exited the ark in the mountains of Ararat, God amazingly spoke the same exact words to them that he'd spoken more than 1,600 years earlier to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. 1,600 years was how long God waited to restore humanity to what he wanted. Be fruitful and multiply, have dominion over the earth. So and it's amazing. So he brings them back to the same general area, and then he gives them the same blessing, right? Be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. And then this little excerpt says, wouldn't it be just like God to bring Noah and his family back to Eden, the starting place of humanity? As he's done for each of us from time to time in restoring our lives, it seems that God miraculously took Noah and his family back to the starting point where life first began through this family of 8. He gave all of creation a fresh start in the original birthplace of humanity. The ingenuity of God is simply amazing. And that was kind of what I wanted to get to. That blew my mind, and it makes me it really puts things in perspective. I mean, imagine that. How awesome. And I'm gonna read some more scriptures, but amazing how awesome God is. So not only did he speak all of creation into existence, right? And then the good plan, perfect plan he had gets messed up. And yet after 1,600 years, God didn't forget what his original plan was. He didn't decide to change it. He didn't go back on what he originally wanted. He literally, I'm just going to reset it. It was a good plan. Nothing about it needed to change. I want to bless you. I want to see you replenish the earth and have dominion over it. And he's very intentional, extremely. I mean, down to the minute details of things he knows about. It's amazing. I remember reading this this book. It's called The Harbinger 2 by Jonathan Cahn, and I kept stopping as I was reading it and putting it down and like looking things up, fact checking it. Not that I didn't trust him, but I just wanted to see, because it was things that happened in my lifetime and I somehow didn't know about them. And I thought, as I'm reading this book, I thought, it's like almost unbelievable how the minute details are not forgotten. They're not overlooked. When God said something specific, he meant it. And not only did he mean it, he's never forgotten it. So it means thousands of years may have passed, but he will do exactly what he said he'll do. And it will be with such great such great detail that it's this is why you can't, to observe nature, the way the earth, if we were 1 degree off from where the earth is like tilted or whatever, this planet life couldn't like live here. So you're telling me that's just chance? No, there is a God in heaven who knows the very minute details that are so small we couldn't even see with a microscope. We couldn't even understand. And yet he will make sure things happen to the most. So for example, if you read, so I would consider probably the most boring book of the Bible to read is Leviticus. I kind of, to be honest, dread if it comes up in my Bible reading plan. I kind of dread it. I'm like, man, this is like boring. However, if you force yourself to pay attention, what I got out of it the last time I read it is I was like, God, like, details matter to God. There is a way of doing things, and it matters to him very much that you follow the exact details that he laid out. He's very specific. Like, so there was a certain way the priests had to conduct their the sacrifices. There was a specific way the clothing had to be woven. I mean, all kinds of very strict detail that you would think that seems petty, which Speaking of petty, God has a sense of humor. In the book of Hosea was a minor prophet in the Old Testament. And when I first noticed this, I literally like laughed, because if God would ever did something petty, it would be this. So Hosea is his prophet, which was his mouthpiece to the people of Israel, right? God's mouthpiece. So God told Hosea, this wasn't like a story or something to say. This was something he actually had him do. He told Hosea, go take a whore of a wife, a hooker, essentially a prostitute, marry her. So Hosea had to actually go do that. It wasn't just like, I want you to tell people Israel's being a whore. No, like he literally had him do it. And then when they had, she got pregnant and they had a couple kids. And the first one, he said, I want you to name the kid, Not My People. We're talking about a literal human being that was born in God from a hooker and this prophet of God. And he said, name it, Not My People. And I laughed. I was like, that seems so petty. Couldn't God have just been like, Hosea, I want you to tell Israel that they're whoring after other gods. I'm very unhappy with them. And, they shouldn't be doing any, but no, instead he's like, literally go do this. And that's how I'm going to show them how upset I am with their whoring. Name the kid, Not My People. And then I think the second one was born. He had him name it No Mercy. But so I laugh at it because it seems petty when I read it, but the details, the minute things matter very much to him. And so the good thing about that, which all of him is good, but I'm saying when it applies to you in your life, God knows everything about you, which I kind of covered that recently, but God knows everything about you, the most intimate details about your life, everything that's happened to you, every thought you've had, every feeling, everything you've considered, everything you've ever thought about doing, whether you did it or not. He knows everything about you. He knows what matters to you. He knows what you need. And all of that matters very much to him. Very much. You know what? I actually, I have a St. Bernard who's 10, going on 10 and a half. And, for a giant breed, that's a pretty good, I'm thankful. I almost feel like I'm in bonus years with him. And he's in pretty good health. He's slow to get up. He sleeps all the time, which he's done that all his life. But he, the other day, and this happens sometimes, I've seen it happen a number of times, but it makes me nervous every time, is when I have a Basset Hound who's like 2. So he's, he wants to play, and my St. Bernard is old and lazy. And so he can only play so much. So anyway, my Basset Hound got him going and then left the room. Or no, he actually wouldn't leave the room. I had to put him in a crate to get him away, because then Olympus, my St. Bernard, starts like stretching and he's like kind of rolling around. He's starting to like pant, and I could tell he was in pain. And again, it's happened before, but again, because he's a St. Bernard, I'm worried about like a stomach flip, because they're prone to that with that low chest they have and stuff. So he's kind of rolling around. I can tell he's in pain and uncomfortable. And so I put my hand on him and I prayed in Jesus' name that this discomfort, this pain would stop and go away. And I said, and I even said this as I prayed, I said, Lord, I know you know everything about me, and I'm your daughter and I matter to you. And so everything that matters to me is also important to you, which is why, as I want my dog to not be in pain and discomfort. And so I know that matters to you. So I expect this prayer to get answered. And I'm telling you, within a minute or two, he was fine. So don't think that something that may seem trivial, why would God care about that? He does. He does. If it matters to you, it matters to him. He loves you and he knows everything about you. Intimate details matter to him. He sees everything. And to kind of get back to, well, actually, I'll just read it real quick since I'm on the subject. Where is it? From Matthew. These are the words of Jesus. He said, even the hairs of your head are all numbered. God knows the number of hairs on your head. That's how much you matter to him. He knows, he cares. So anyway, let me get back to kind of about the faithfulness of God. We talked about how he doesn't change, how his plan for humanity didn't change. And then let's look at which is kind of similar, the same thing to his faithfulness. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. So notice humanity was unfaithful. Adam and Eve were unfaithful. Sin continued after them, even after God reset the earth with the flood. And then if you read throughout the Old Testament, Israel, God's chosen people who he made an everlasting covenant with, were blowing it right and left, generation after generation, whoring after other gods, absolute, just not staying in covenant with God. And they were faithless for sure. And God would have had every opportunity. He did. I mean, he had every opportunity to be like, you know what? It's not worth it. I waited 1,600 years at first. Now it's thousands more. I'm sick of this. You guys don't deserve it. I'm out. He would, we would understand that. Like, it'd be like if anyone, like some girl that's in a relationship with a guy who's like abusive and he cheats on her, everyone would be like, girl, like, you are an idiot for staying with that guy. Why don't you leave? It's like, that's how it would look for God's steadfast faithfulness, that he continued to take abuse, really, with the unfaithful people that he made a covenant with, who he has remained faithful to, never breaking covenant on his end. And they kept doing it time and again. And yet he remained faithful, and he continues to. And there it says, 2 Timothy, which is his New Testament, he cannot deny himself, which is what I was saying. You can hold him to his word. You can stand on it. He will not go back on it. And he has to fulfill everything he said he'd do, which he has a very good track record of doing. Next, blessed is he whose help is the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord his God, who made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, who keeps faith forever. Literally keeps faith forever, unchanging, unchangeable nature, ever faithful. That's who he is. So if he said it, it's the truth, and he will do it. And there's no expiration date on this. Don't make the mistake of reading the Bible. Wow, God really did some awesome things back then. Again, he's the same. He hasn't changed throughout all this time, and he won't. So if the Bible shows us God acts in a certain way, you better believe he will do the same thing today. You activate certain things by your faith. If you don't believe it, you won't see it. Why? God's a gentleman. He doesn't force miracles on people. He won't force healing. Imagine someone asked my pastor that. I think it was this lady cutting his hair, and now she doesn't cut his hair anymore because she got mad when she found out he was a Christian. And she was like, if you believe in healing, then why don't you go into that God will heal the sick? Then why don't you go into all the hospitals and empty them out and heal everybody? And he said, well, first of all, he said, how far do you think I'd make it? How many rooms could I get to before I'd be thrown out, for starters? And he said, second of all, what happens when someone doesn't want it? Someone like you, essentially, that hates God. I don't want you praying for me. Don't touch me. He said, so I'm supposed to overpower them and force it? No, it doesn't work that way. Notice when Jesus was walking around healing, even after Jesus had already ascended and the apostles were doing it, notice there's a pattern there. They laid their hands on and healed people who desired it, people who showed up and said, I want this, I want to be well. Those people got healed. So clearly they had faith and they desired it, right? And Jesus also, he didn't just walk the whole earth and heal every sick person. He healed the ones who came or were brought to him. So that's your model of how to do it. Anyway, next. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. Notice, everlasting covenant. If God says his covenant is everlasting, it is. He will not break it. He won't. Never has, never will. I will make with them an everlasting covenant that I will not turn away from doing good to them. I'm giving you every example basically of where the words everlasting covenant are mentioned to show you he didn't only say it one time, he said it multiple times in multiple places, which tells you he means it. Even if he said it once, it's enough, but he said it a bunch of times. I will remember my covenant with you, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you. See, he remembers, and he's bound by it. For I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery. Sorry. Robbery. I put together robbery and iniquity. For I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery and iniquity. I will give you your reward and make an everlasting covenant with you. Again, that's a completely different book. He said it again. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Yes, he is. His faithfulness is so like out of this world that it seems insane to us, because we think if you've been mistreated enough times, you walk, you know what I'm saying? And that you would be it'd be understandable for you to, but there is no such thing for God. He takes it time and again. You can, reject him, hate him, not want anything to do with him. He remains faithful in love, steadfast, and does not forget any covenant that he's ever made. Next. He who calls you is faithful. He will surely do it. My goodness. If there is, and this is New Testament here, anything you're believing for, verse right there. He who calls you is faithful. He will surely do it. So if you commit your work to the Lord and you, your desire is to please him, to walk in obedience, to do the right thing, whatever it is that he has you do, he not only will he bless it, but he'll take care of you. Whatever details need worked out, don't even worry about it. Don't look at, well, how could this work? On paper, I don't know how this could work. In the natural, it can't. That's why you have a supernatural God who's above all of that. He knows the minute details and very, intricate things that need to be worked out. And if he called you to it, he absolutely will make a way for you. He's not going to tell you to do something and then laugh when you fail. I will not violate my covenant or alter the word that went forth from my lips. So this is another example of how he won't change. If he said something, he meant it, and he is forever bound by what he said. He will not go back on what he said. I'm giving you a ton of examples to make sure you know. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it. So, another example, he's very intentional, and if he determined for something to produce something, it will. Every word of God proves true. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. So not only is he faithful and you can trust him that he will do exactly what he said he'll do, but he's a shield. He is a help. He's the Lord's a very present help in time of trouble. He is your shield. Anything that happens, the Lord fights for you. You simply cannot lose. You can't. Battles come, trials come, tribulation comes, but those who built their house on the solid rock foundation, the storm comes, but the house stands. So you can't expect to never have trouble, but you can expect to withstand all trouble because he's your shield. Blessed be the Lord who has given rest to his people Israel, according to all that he promised. Not one word has failed of all his good promise, which he spoke by Moses, his servant. Not one word has failed. That's what I'm saying. Not only if he said something will happen to a very specific degree, he said something would come to pass with extreme, specificity, whatever. I don't know how to say that word. Specificity? That doesn't sound right. Whatever. To a very specific degree, it absolutely will happen down to the most minute detail that would even seem not important. It matters to God. He sees it. And if he said it's going to happen that way, he will ensure that it does, which is why biblical prophecy is so is so accurate. There's absolutely the Bible. There is no other piece of literature that you can compare to the Bible as far as prophetic words that were given thousands of years in advance that came to happen exactly the way the prophetic word said they would. God knows. He's outside of time. I'm actually going to get to that in a couple minutes, but he will make sure things go down exactly the way that he said that they would, because he is true to his word. They serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly things. For when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by God, saying, see that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. So this is, that's from Hebrews, but he's referencing an older book of the Bible, making everything according to the pattern. So the specific details that God tells you, if you get to the point you can hear the voice of God, it's nothing compares to it. It's amazing. It's the way you want to do life. It's a cheat code for getting through life. So if there's something very specific he says to do everything exactly according to the way he said to do it. If you're like, you know what, I think it makes more sense to do this, do not deviate from it. The specific details are very important, and there's a reason he told you to do things the way that he did. I'll tell you a couple examples in a couple minutes. Who has performed and done this, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first and with the last, I am he. So notice, and this is another reason why you should trust him, is he's the first and the last. He's eternal, always was, he is, and he always will be. So why in the world would you or I or any human think we would have a better idea of how to do something than God? He knows the beginning from the end. We don't. We know what's going on right now. But if he's saying do things this way, it's because he knows, he sees the entire picture. We've got this much of it. There's a few more verses like that. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. Here's a very similar one. I am he, I am the first, and I am the last. And that's all Isaiah, but it's three different chapters. So again, he's saying it 3 times. Pretty important. Wants you to get it. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. It's absolutely amazing that the Almighty God, the creator of the whole universe, who's timeless, who is eternal, always, who is and who was and who is to come, that he knows you by name and knows like I said, the intimate details and wants a relationship with you. Isn't that amazing? Think of all the people that have crossed his path. Like, I hate to put it that way, but like, think about it. All of the people since the beginning of time that have been born. Wouldn't it seem like God's had his fill of humans? Haven't you, there would have been plenty who were pleasing to you that you had a nice relationship with, or, plenty that weren't, unfortunately, but and yet you still, the people here now, after all these years, you still care and you want more children. You want a relationship with yet another human. Yes. He made mankind and he said it was good. He desires that. And no, there is no end to his goodness. There's no end to his faithfulness, and there's no end to his love for humanity. Obviously, there's going to come an end of the world when the judgment's poured out. But I'm saying until then, we've got this period of grace. Now's the time to get in if you're not. He's a good God, and he's a friend like no other. He's a support, a help like no other. Trying to do life without a relationship with God, I don't even want to know what that's like. I can't imagine, and I don't want to know. Next. It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. See, he sees it all, and he always is. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. So there's literally 3 verses from Revelation, which is the final book of the Bible. despite what is it the Latter-day Saints or Jehovah's Witnesses? I don't know. They've like added to it. It's not the truth. But anyway, that's what he says concerning himself. So what was it I said I was going to mention? Oh, about specific things. So God, obviously, he's omnipresent. He's everywhere all at once. He's omnipotent. He's all knowing. And like I've been talking about, he knows the intricate details of everything. So there's a guy by the name of John Hagee, and he's still alive. You can actually look up this story. He was interviewed about it. It made headlines in some places. And in fact, his church exploded after this happened. So there was a guy in John Hagee's church, and he said, hey, Mike, I have a cousin who's insane, like demon possessed, crazy, and he hates you. And he said, he's going to come here and he's going to kill you. And he said, I'm just letting you know, Pastor Hagee, I think he means it. He's nuts. So I'm giving you a warning if he shows up, like I tried to tell you. So I think he came in from another state or something, if I remember right. So anyway, sure enough, here comes this insane demon possessed cousin. And he shows up at John Hagee's church, and he starts coming down the aisle. And the Lord spoke two things to John Hagee, which is why I said being able to hear the voice of God is crucial. Two things. The first one was a scripture. It said, no weapon fashioned against you shall prosper, which is, I think, from Isaiah something. And then the second thing he said was not a scripture. He said, stay where you are and don't move, or like stand your ground and don't move. So this guy's coming down the aisle and he's got a pistol pointed at John Hagee. And he said, you're going to get on your knees and you're going to beg for your life, preacher. And John Hagee had just heard from the Lord, and he said, no, I'm not. I'm not getting on my knees, and I'm not moving from this spot. So, this guy unloads. He fires 6 rounds out of his pistol from 8 feet away. Somehow, not a single one of the bullets hit John Hagee. So then, people tackle him. He gets taken away. He ends up in jail. And then I think he ends up in a psych ward or something. And then he gets out and kills himself. So that's how his life ended, unfortunately. But, that was a crime scene after that happened. So the, crime scene unit or cops, whoever, they came in and they were like, how did he miss? Helen Keller could have hit him at least once from that range. How did not a single one of those 6 rounds hit him? So they set up like a pillar thing where the guy was standing and where John Hagee was standing, and they took red string that followed the path of the bullets, and it's like you could see where they hit behind. It's like something bent, like the air. The trajectory of the bullet, it was like something bent the path of them to go right around him. So that's a miracle, right? And John Hagee's still alive to tell about it. And then another one, actually there's 2 that I can think of, and both of these were my pastor's dad. His name's Tiff Shuttlesworth. If I mess up the details, I apologize. But the first one was I think I've maybe shared this before. I think he was in New York State, and he was driving. He had this red panel van with no windows. So not a common vehicle. If you saw it once, you'd probably remember it. Most vehicles don't look like that. So he's driving his van, and it was late at night. I think he'd just gotten done preaching because he's an evangelist. And this car comes up behind him, and this person's driving erratically, laying on the horn, seemed like super upset. So he pulls over, like, what's going on? So this guy gets out, and I don't know if he had a weapon or not. But he starts screaming at him, and he's like, I think this guy's going to like kill me. So he doesn't know why. He's like, I've never seen him. I don't know what the problem is. I didn't cut him off. Like, what's going on? And the Lord spoke to me. He said, tell him to look at your license plate. So he said to the guy who's screaming, he said, look at my license plate. And the guy looked at it, and then he goes, oh, I'm sorry. I have the wrong person. So then he ends up asking, what's going on? I don't know who you're looking for. Clearly someone driving the same vehicle I'm driving, but you knew by the license plate that I'm not, it's a different vehicle. So what happened? And I can't remember. I think the guy, someone had like assaulted his daughter or like beat her up or something like that. And so he thought he found the person who did it, which is why he was ready to kill him to avenge his daughter. And then I think Tiff was able to lead him to the Lord from that whole thing. And then the second thing that happened to him, he was preaching somewhere. I want to say it was somewhere in Africa. And there were these like, you know, whatever kind of military, you know, like it's like corrupt military where they might show up and like rape and kill people type of like machete with the beret, machete Africa type stuff. So he's preaching and this guy busts in with the beret. He's got like a machete or something, and he starts coming down the aisle, and the Lord spoke to Tiff. He said, keep preaching. So he's like, all right, you know, everything in your flesh is looking at this person coming toward you with a weapon, looking like they want to kill you. Wouldn't you be like, I would like to run, Lord? But no, keep preaching. So he's like, okay. He keeps preaching. Something comes out of nowhere, something invisible, like an angel with a baseball bat, and it hits this guy, and no one touched him. Something hits him. He goes flying off his feet and falls backwards. So the second one comes in, same thing. And I think there were like 6 in a row or something like that. And then the last guy came in and he like put his weapon down. He's like, please. So so God, no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, and especially if you are doing something for the Lord, if you're serving the Lord, you're in covenant with him, you're being obedient, you're walking with him. Whatever you're doing, trust that the Lord knows where you are. He'll protect you. He'll sustain you. And even if you don't know him, he still knows where you are. He sees you and he loves you. My pastor, one of his uncles, his name's Ted Shuttlesworth. He operates in a really cool gift called a word of knowledge. And he has a gift where he can look at people and the Lord will tell him what's wrong with them. So, and it's something like, it could be, you know, it's something internal that you can't see. You know, you can kind of tell if someone's blind. I'm talking like stuff on the inside that you can't see. Like, hey, you're actually missing a kidney or something, and you can't tell from the outside. So it's very specific things. So he, there was a number of people that he prayed for, and I was there in the meeting, and it's amazing how the Lord will give him a vision of something that happened in the person's past, and he can see, I see you were in your room, you were sitting on the edge of the bed, you were crying, and this is what you said. And the person's like, yeah, that's actually exactly what happened. And so there have been a number of people where he said, the Lord saw you, that dangerous situation that happened when you were younger. The Lord saw you and he protected you. His hand has been on your life this whole time. And he wants a relationship with you. He loves you. He's looked out for you. You know, he's here for you. So that's how, again, to go back to how I started, God doesn't change. You can trust in his word when he says he doesn't change. He stays the same. He's faithful. He will honor his word. He will honor his covenant, and he knows everything about you, and it matters to him. So I hope that, and you know what, speaking of that, I will share this testimony of this lady. This just happened last week when my pastor was in Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. And look at this lady's testimony. I might cry because I've watched it like 3 times and it made me cry every time.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm from Faith Church in Danville. Before the revival coming in with Jonathan, I've been battling a demon within myself, not able to look in the mirror, not even to smile. When I looked in the mirror, I seen I felt unworthy of love. Coming to the revival Monday night, I was so excited, and Jonathan called me down and he prayed for me. He prayed that to stop letting people take my joy. How, I had no clue. And then he prayed for my blood sugar, and then he baptized me in the Holy Spirit. I went home Monday night, and then Tuesday morning I got up, going to the bathroom. Something stopped me and told me to look in the mirror. I stopped. I looked myself in the mirror. I was able to smile. I felt loved. I felt worthy. And I knew God loved me. And it was no more letting nobody steal my joy or anything. And then I get up Wednesday morning and my doctor's office called me and she said, Kelly, what have you done? What have you done? Your blood sugars has been fine. It's not been bottoming out, because my blood sugars had been bottoming out to the bottom. And they've been ready to put me in the hospital for a 5-week stay to run tests and stuff. And I told her, I said, I've been healed. I was baptized in the Holy Spirit and God healed me. She was able to stop all the testing canceled everything, took me off our books. I'm healed. For this experience, I will forever be grateful.
They sent her home.
I found my confidence back. And I know that God has got me through this whole experience.
Can you give a
Praise God. So that's one lady in Kentucky, and there are, in fact, billions of people just like her. And was she dying riddled with stage 4 cancer? No, but she was tormented with not being able to look in the mirror. She hated herself. She had no joy, and that matters to God as much as the person that has cancer. Anything you are struggling with that the devil has done to you to steal your joy, to make life hard, to keep you bound by anything, all of that matters to God. Jesus came to undo the works of the devil, destroy the works of the devil. So any hold he has in your life that's kept you from the goodness and the fullness of the life God intended for his creation to have, God, that matters to God. So don't ever think that there's something, oh, that's too small. Actually, God wouldn't care about that. He cares. Not only does he know about it, but he cares, and he would be happy to help you with it, to take it from you. So I love that. That made me happy. Real quick, I forgot to do this when I did the news, so I want to pop it up on the screen, because this happened to a guy by the name of Russell Johnson. He has a church. He has, I think, 3 or 4 churches in Seattle, which is, my pastor said when he was there, he saw more demon-possessed people in Seattle than anywhere else in the world. And he's like, and I've been to Africa and all India, he said it's full of people that are insane and demon-possessed. So this happened. So Russell is like the bravest person to ever live. He is super bold, and despite the onslaught of persecution, his church has only grown, and I think they're starting a 4th campus. But look at what happened just a number of days ago. So this is him calling out the mayor. So they were having an outdoor church service or worship, and then they got attacked by a bunch of gay people and Antifa queers. Apparently there's a thing called queer Tifa or something like that, which, none of these people are really like difficult to take in a fight, but they still got like attacked. So the cops had to come. So basically, the mayor of Seattle was like, who gave them a permit to be able to have an outdoor church? So instead of, defending the Christians who got assaulted, he's wondering who gave them a permit. So then this is Russell calling him out. So he said 23 Antifa thugs were arrested, cops were hospitalized, church people were assaulted, and the mayor of Seattle has the audacity to blame Christians for the violence. The city of Seattle is plagued by chronically inept political leadership, and Mayor Harrell is no exception. Blah, blah, blah. Toxic office culture. So homicides up and all this stuff. And then he's like, and you have the audacity to call us a problem. So look at what this is, like a minute long. Look at why can't I make this bigger? Okay.
Look, this toaster. I live a life full of peace, full of joy.
Dang, dude. It's another day at work, huh?
Look, they're literally worshiping in the middle of the cops tackling and cuffing people. Hold on, that guy right there. That's Ross Johnston. This guy right here. So he's awesome. He's a super bold evangelist. He looks crazy there. He's from, I think, California, and he preaches on the streets. He goes into schools, and tons of people are coming to Christ through his evangelistic ministry. So he was there in Seattle. You know what his story is? He is a test tube baby. He has 2 gay moms. That's how he came to exist. And so one of the most unlikely people that you would ever think would come to not only become a Christian, but become a super effective, spirit-filled responsible for many people receiving Christ Christian. That's what he is. And so his entire existence is a giant middle finger to Satan. And here he was part of it. And they're just like, these people are demon possessed when they're literally mad that you're outside praising God. So again, Russell Johnson is like the bravest person. He's been through it. Talk about, like, people think persecution doesn't really happen in America. And to the extent it happens in like some other countries, maybe that's true, but he's an example of what persecution looks like in America. He's had like tons of threats, stuff thrown. Like I think he's been escorted out of his own church building with like help, because people were coming to attack him. So, and yet it's only made him like plant more churches. So he's been to my church a number of times. He's prayed for me. He lays his hands on everybody and he'll like prophesy over you. He takes his time. Last time he did that at my church, it was like 1:30. I literally went to the church, which is a good 38 minutes from my house, attended the meeting, stayed for prayer, and I was one of the first to get prayed for. I left after that. I drive all the way home. My husband was watching it live. It was literally like 1:30 in the morning when he finally was done praying for everyone, because he wouldn't rush it. So I have tremendous respect for him. Most people would just be like, you know what, I'm done. Let me see if there's anything funny after all that. Watch this, man. Russians are not scared of anything. Look at this guy. This always comes up on my Instagram. Look, he just hangs out with this bear. He eats it. Tickling its teeth. Look at this. I feel like bears, they should be friends. Like, look at the way they're shaped. They're big and fluffy. Like, it would be the best hug. So all of them should be like this. You shouldn't have to be Russian. That's so cute. It's like blowing kisses or something. Why we're having a good time. Let me see what this one is. Maybe I just need to be done because boom!
Oh god!
Oh my goodness! How embarrassing. I would die. I feel like that could actually like break your neck. All right, I'm done. Pop this up. Ways to contact, find me, follow, whatever. I will continue to post on Substack. I don't know if that's helping anybody. I am trying. Yeah, so for now, the only 3 places that are live are Instagram, Rumble, and YouTube. I was going to do X, but I literally have 0 people on there, so I don't know. And then this, if you would like to support, those are the ways you could do it. That is the same email address to contact. So if you do have a business or something and you would like to be a sponsor, that would be the way to get a hold of me, and then we could work something out. So for episode 43, that is all. I will see you in episode 44. Have a wonderful rest of your week. God bless you.